Unmuted.
Oo, muted pala ako, ayan. Hello and good afternoon everyone! Isa na naman pong episode dito po sa HR Cafe, Usapang Trabaho, Buwet Iba Pa. Naku, napaka-exciting po. Nakikita ko ang aking face. Ako po ang speaker for today. So excited ako, lalong-lalo na at medyo matagal po tayong nawala. Ayan. So dun po sa mga nandito na po sa ating nasa comment section na po, nasa HR Cafe na po, nasa Philippines HR Group. Please don't forget to tell us where you're from, tag your friends, share today's episode para naman po exciting ang ating talakayan. Ayan. At syempre po, if it's your first time being here at the HR Cafe, we would like to introduce our HR Cafe servers. We have Coach Darwin Rivers, a multi-awarded HR executive with more than 20 years of progressive leadership and management experience working with top Fortune 500 multinational companies. He's also the founder and CEO of Philippines HR Group, the largest Facebook group for HR professionals here in the Philippines. He's also a certified life coach, public speaker, and motivational speaker and HR consultant. Unfortunately, Coach Dar cannot be with us today dahil meron pong nilulutong magandang programa ang Philippines HR Group. Ayan. And of course, we also have Mentor Alan Cañete. Mentor Alan is an HR, L&D, and OD practitioner with more than 20 years of corporate and freelance consulting experience. He's the president and managing director of Creative Moves Business Outsourcing and a board director of Philippines HR Group. Ayan po. At syempre, hindi makukumpleto ang HR Cafe pag wala po ang ating mentor, Tina Coang, an operations and HR leader with broad local and overseas experience. She's the general manager of a retail company, an online content creator and blogger of tinainmanila.com, and one of LinkedIn's top 100 Filipinos to follow. Good afternoon, Mentor Tina. How's your Sunday so far?
Good afternoon, Mentor Rona, and good afternoon to everyone who's watching at the HR Cafe. I'm very excited kasi this episode we're going to global. Thanks to Mentor Rona. And we'd like to also greet the early birds na nagsa-shoutout sa show natin. There is Miss Mary Caballero. Good afternoon, coaches. Have a great day full of learning. And Danny Rose Marciano. Good afternoon to the HR Cafe. Remember to tag, share this episode, and then also greet us at the comment section so that we can give you a shout out at the show.
Ayan po. Thank you so much, Mentor Tina. And of course, yours truly, Mentor Rona Florentino. I've been an HR practitioner for more than 2 decades now, working in different local and international companies. I'm currently the president and CEO of Uprosh Social Geekers. I'm a public speaker and HR consultant and was also fortunate to be included in LinkedIn's top 100 Filipinos to follow. Of course, kung first time nyo po dito sa HR Cafe at tinatanong nyo, sino nga ba si HR Cafe? Ano nga ba si HR Cafe? HR Cafe is here to provide you with timely news and updates, impart knowledge and experience that are value-adding and beneficial to our audiences, discuss problems, issues, and challenges, and provide answers and resolutions on HR topics, provide weekly free training by our experts and seasoned guest resource speakers, discuss new technology, tools, processes, as well as industry best practices, bridge understanding between employees and employers, and provide inspiration and motivation para may energy tayo para bukas. At speaking of energy, syempre meron tayong wow quote for the week. And this time, this is coming from Patrick Geeds. Ang sabi niya, think globally, act locally. Ayan. Mentor Tina, ano pong masasabi mo sa ating wow quote for the week?
I've lived overseas. I've lived and worked overseas for over 10 years. And it's very surprising that the best practices and everything I've learned overseas cannot really be related locally. As in, so nung nagtrabaho for after a decade working in Hong Kong and Taiwan, working in the corporate world, then pagdating ko sa Pilipinas, nalaman ko, honestly lahat ng natutunan ko overseas, hindi makarelate locally, as in sobrang different talaga ng iba. That's why I'm very cautious when somebody who has no local background manages a company in the Philippines. Kasi iba talaga, while the book content is the same, while the concepts are correct, the books are correct, once they're published, delayed na po siya. Hindi siya updated. What's updated is really going down to your roots, talking to your customers, your suppliers, your employees, talking to other businesses who are doing the same thing as you are, and adjusting yourself. And I think the greatest struggle of every practitioner is, sino ba dapat mag-adjust? Ako ba or sila? Kasi when you're talking to employees, parang feeling mo nape-pressure kang mag-adjust sa kanila, maniwala sa kanila, gawin yung gusto nila. It's really difficult to stand your ground unless you're very confident with what you're going to do. Kasi minsan, dito lalong-lalo sa Philippines, sasabihin nila, alam mo, hindi totoo yan, sabi ng dole, ganito, ganyan. If you're not firm with what you know, it's so easy to believe the other person. So I think the lesson here is number one, understand that local and global are still different. And if you are in Rome, do what Romans do. If you're in the Philippines, adjust to the Filipino way. Number two, you need to know the labor code and you need to know what you're doing so that you can confidently stand your ground. Because even though you adjust locally, it doesn't mean you always have to do what the locals want. You still need to follow what the company wants you to do. But you need to have that strength, that knowledge, that experience, that confidence to to make that happen. Right? And then lastly, I think that parang you, even if you're very local, try your best to know global. Kasi tayo kasi, minsan ang galing-galing na yung HR dito, but they don't exert effort to know more. You still need to know more. You still need to be updated kasi every month, every year, may bagong nangyayari. May bagong pakulo. And you need to
Agree.
learn that so that you can address it quickly. How about you, Mentor Rona? And to everyone who's watching the HR Cafe, please share your opinions on the wow quote of the week. Rona?
Yes. Agree, Mentor Tina. Naku, totoong-totoo yan, especially in the Philippines. Here in the Philippines, if you want to really get kumbaga, the buy-in of the employees, you have to act locally. Ang problema, yung think globally minsan, it gets lost, lalo na sa mga Filipino employees, Filipino HR. Like, parang masyado tayong nagiging kampante na we are good in terms of the labor law here in the Philippines, and then dun na, hindi na tayo nag-a-aspire. It's not that, hindi ko sinasabi na dapat lahat nag-a-aspire to go global, but at the very least, we should keep our ears on the ground sa kung ano ba nangyayari globally para yung estado rin ng HR dito sa Pilipinas na itataas din natin. Kasi so far ang napapansin ko, masyadong administrative pagdating sa yung mga Filipino HR. They're very administrative and most of them are good when it comes to administrative stuff. Pero pagdating sa strategic, dun medyo bumabagsak. They cannot apply yung mga global concepts or even yung mga best practices. They're having a hard time synthesizing it, breaking it down, putting up something new, and creating something for the organization. Most likely, ang gagawin nila, copy-paste lang. Hindi na pag-iisip, ginagawa ng ibang company, it works for them, copy natin dito. Which, to some degree, minsan nakakalungkot. And that's the reason why we also have this topic for today. Kasi I think it's time for Filipino HR to really, you can act locally, and even for foreigners working here in the Philippines, you can act locally, but you really have to think globally. Kasi how business is yung business models natin right now, they are all changing very rapidly, especially with the pandemic. Dati hindi uso yung mga remote work. Ngayon nagiging ano na siya, option na siya. It's something that would make or break a job offer for most employees. So I 100% agree with what you mentioned. Yung ating po mga audience, ano po ang masasabi niyo sa ating wow quote for the week? Nakarelate ba kayo? Anong inyong mga thoughts about this? Please let us know. Put that in our comment section at huwag kalimutang sabihin kung saan kayo nanonood right now. I-share din po ang ating episode for today para naman maganda ang ating talakayan at ma-share din natin ang ating learning. At syempre, kung meron tayong wow quote for the week, hindi mawawala ang HR question for the week. Can we terminate employees who have been proven to be having extramarital affairs? Naku, madalas na question ito sa Philippines HR group. Ano po ang masasabi mo tungkol dito, Mentor Tina?
Ikaw na, Mentor Ron. I wanna know yours first.
Actually, anything, laging stand naman natin ito sa Philippines HR Group. Usually, sinasabi natin ito. If it doesn't impact work, what's your grounds for terminating the employee? If it's not something na sobrang yung tipong nahuli nyo sa akto, dun mismo sa office premises, may ginagawa silang kamunduhan, yun po pwede nyo i-terminate. Pero for having extramarital affairs, this is usually outside of the jurisdiction of the company. You can guide them ng kung ano ba yung dapat na behavior, but you cannot terminate them just because of that. Unless, of course, number one, yung inyong line of business or yung industry ninyo is heavy on morality. Kunwari, Catholic schools, meron na tayong mga naging jurisprudence dyan, especially pag yung mga ganun na ang kanilang isa sa mga requirements nila or isa sa mga competencies dapat meron is yung moral ascendancy. But if it's just any other private organization, it would be hard to terminate an employee na merong extramarital affair. And this has happened many times in the past na sinabi nila ni Supreme Court na hindi po pwede dahil hindi naman saklaw yung mga private affairs ng isang empleyado. Ikaw po, Mentor Tina, what can you say about this question of the week? And para po do sa ating mga audience, lagay nyo din po, what do you think about the HR question of the week?
Please be very careful in making up rules and policies for your organization without double checking if it is based on the labor code or not. Kasi logically, from a very conservative Filipino standpoint, it seems legal na if na merong kabet yung employee mo, pwede mo siyang tanggalin, right? Lalong-lalo na if sinugod ng asawa kasama ang umiiyak ng anak, then you feel the need and pressure to correct this moral wrongdoing and terminate this person following due process. Which is fine unless the person reports you to DOLE and escalates it to NLRC for illegal termination. And the fact na may Supreme Court jurisprudence shows that masyadong malaki yung back wages if natalo po kayo sa call ninyo. It will cost you hundreds of thousands, if not millions, if you make the wrong call just because you chose to make rules. In short, do not terminate employees who have been proven to be having extramarital affairs. There's so many jurisprudence from senior court, from the Supreme Court saying that bawal po yun. All right? Let's be very, very clear. Now, what should you do if alam ninyong may kabet? Right? Don't do it the front way. There's many ways to terminate a person without focusing on the extramarital. Labas kayo sa extramarital. Now, how do a lot of companies do it? O, ito na, tip na. Number one, double check the work. If they're having extramarital affairs, they might be using company time for their personal affairs. Dinadala yung kabet on business travels, right? Using business credit card to feed the mistress. Oh, that's theft, right? Okay lang na pakainin mo yung girlfriend mo, pero gamitin mo yung pera mo. Huwag mong ilalagay sa credit card, tapos papa-reimburse mo sa akin, pabalik sa wallet mo. Pagdating nun, that's not extramarital affairs, that's dishonesty. That's serious misconduct, that's qualified theft. Okay? Pag absence without leave. Lagi siyang umaalis kasi kailangan nilang mag-travel sa weekend. And then yung pala, alam ng asawa, parang business trip. Oh, pwede mo siyang huliin sa ganon. So again, what I'm teaching you is, wag paharap when you want to terminate dun sa go around and actually follow what is just causes. So for example, ano yung mga just causes? Serious misconduct, fraud, theft, dishonesty, loss of confidence and trust, lalo na pag senior manager. Do it when it really affects their performance, their attendance, their way of dealing at work. But don't do it just because, kunyari, kasi may mga taong kabit, pero hiwalay talaga yung kabit. Walang nakakaalam, walang pakialam, hindi affected lang yung off-duty hours niya, personal hours niya. Pag ganun, pabayaan nyo na. Huwag nyo nang galawin. Pero once it creeps on to the professional life and professional hours and the money that the company pays the person via time and reimbursement, then that's the time you have to act. Because people who are lying and cheating and stealing regardless of whether they have mistresses or not, should be terminated following due process under the labor code. Kayo naman po, sabi ni Sir Jojo Resho, we always go back to what is provided for in the company's code of conduct. Tama naman yun. Again, it must be written. And if you really, really want to be safe, please add no extramarital affairs inside your company. Okay? And then also, be very careful. Paano kung live-in lang? Kasi maraming mga live-in na nagre-reklamo as if parang legal wife sila. Rona, pag ganun ba, how do you guys handle that?
Ay, 'pag live-in kasi hindi pa naman kasi natin ino-honor
Oo.
talaga 'pag mga live-in, eh. So, 'di ba, kahit na magreklamo sila, kung sino man yung kaniyang let's say may kasal ito, kung sino yung legal wife, yun pa din yung kumbaga mas may say. And even the legal wife 'pag kunwari ang nirereklamo nila sweldo, hindi rin naman natin basta-basta binibigay yung sweldo. Yung empleyado ang under sa'tin, yung empleyado ang control natin. Dun lang tayo nakikipag-usap talaga. So,
Correct.
'di ba?
Mm-mm.
Tamang-tama yung tama yung sinabi ni Sir Jojo. Babalik tayo doon sa inyong code of conduct. Ano bang nilagay niyo sa code of conduct? Ang pinakamahirap dito is patunayan na merong illicit affair. Lalo na
Hmm.
pag chismis-chismis lang and then you
Against
acted
the
on the
law.
chismis, 'di ba? Magiging problema pa 'yan lalo. So be very careful tulad nga ng sabi ni Mentor Tina. Ayan. So sa atin pong mga nanonood, don't forget to put in our comment section yung inyo pong thoughts about our HR question for the week. At syempre, napakagandang balita nito. Ginulat tayo ng DOLE at ng National Wages and Productivity Commission. Mentor Tina, ano po ba ang latest mula kay DOLE at NWPC?
Alright. According to Dole, on the fourth, sabi may new minimum wage na sa Calabarzon effective this September 24, which is in 2 weeks time. September 24 is on a Sunday. So ang taas po natin is a wage increase of 35 to 50 pesos. That's around almost 1,300 pesos. The new minimum wage on the region will now range from 385 to 520 in the non-agricultural sector, 385 to 479 in the agri sector, and 385 for retail and service establishments employing not more than 10 workers. So this is effective September 24 as announced by DOLE. So please sa mga ibang mga provinces na wala po sa Calabarzon, abangan din kasi kayo din po magkakaroon ng magandang bonus in the next couple of months. And with that, I'd like to greet Daday Kalahe Dino who's watching from Parañaque, Angel Lozari, who's watching from Santa Rosa, Laguna, Therese Angelica, Richard Sanfranco Salazar, who's also watching, Merly Arexeo, who is also watching. Again, my friends, please leave your name, your company name, where you are in the Philippines and otherwise, so we can give you a shout out at the show. Next po. Muted.
Muted pala ako. Thank you so much. At yes, meron na naman po tayong update mula kay SSS. Pinapaalalahanan po ng SSS ang inyo pong pension loan para po sa ating mga senior citizens. Ito po ay po pwede nyo nang i-apply online. Maaari kayong mag-apply ng pension loan to a maximum of 200,000 pesos na maaaring bayaran sa loob ng 6, 12, or 24 na months na may 10% interest rate kada taon. Para po ito sa ating mga senior citizens, yung mga avail na po ng retirement benefit. Pag kayo po ay covered employee, hindi pa po kayo po pwedeng mag-pension loan, kayo po ay yung ordinary salary loan lang po. Ang pension loan po ay maaari nyo pong i-apply na online. All you have to do is make sure that you have a my.sss account. Make sure that you have an endorsed or enrolled na account number po or bank account dun po sa inyong my.sss para kayo po ay makapag-avail ng pension loan sa kanila. Again, para po ito sa ating mga pensioners na gusto pong mag-avail ng loan. Tandaan din po natin na ang payment po sa loan na ito ay i-charge po against doon sa pension na nakukuha ninyo. So, i-deduct po yan doon. So, kung hindi naman kailangan, wag nang mag-loan, pero pag may emergency yan, dyan nyo po yan itabi. Hanggang 200,000 pesos po ang po pwede nyo i-loan. At sinishare din po ng SSS, meron pong significant development in SSS benefits and loans to member this years. Yung atin pong implementation ng Republic Act number 8558 or Act granting retirement benefits to underground mine workers at the age of 55. Isa po yan sa bago or sa updates po sa mga benefits and loans na binibigay ng SSS. Pwede na rin pong mag-open ng 3 billion housing loan facility. Nag-open din po ng 3 billion housing loan facility for overseas Filipino workers and trade union members, at nag-increase din po ang loanable amount for salary loan from 15,000 to 24,000 subject to certain conditions. Ayan po. So yan po ang mga latest from SSS. Please make sure po na meron po kayong my.sss account kasi dyan po lahat ipaprocess yan. Heads up din po, nakastop na po ang pagpaprocess ng SSS ID. UMID na po ang pinaprocess sa SSS po. So kung wala pa po kayong UMID, now's the best time to process that. Kung kayo po ay naghahanap ng mabilisang ID, kailangan nyo po ng ID, pwede po kayo mag-apply for UMID. Ang UMID po ng SSS right now ay kapareho na rin po sa Pag-ibig na po pwede nyong gamitin as an ATM. Ayan. At ang Pag-ibig po, sinasabi din po nila, pag kayo po ay member ng Pag-ibig Loyalty Plus, meron po kayong Loyalty Plus card, maaari po kayo maka-avail ng 10% discount on food and drinks sa Figaro, Angel's Pizza, and Tien Mas. Ayan. So kung kayo po ay foodie tulad ko, napakagandang opportunity po ito na dapat nating i-take advantage. So kung wala pa po kayong Loyalty Plus card, kumuha na po kayo. The Loyalty Plus card also serves as an ATM. Pag kayo po ay may mga loan or benefits coming from Pag-ibig, yan po ay ipapasok dun po sa inyong Loyalty Plus card. Hindi nyo na po kailangan pang mag-open ng iba pang bank account. Kung naka-loyalty card lang po kayo, yung wala pa pong ATM, maaari din po kayong mag-avail ng mga discount. Po pwede nyo rin pong convert yung inyo pong loyalty card to Loyalty Plus card. Very active po ang Pag-ibig ngayon. So kung kayo po ay marami mga employees na gustong kumuha ng Loyalty Plus card, pwede po kayo mag-reach out sa Pag-ibig at i-on-site po nila yung pagpa-process or pag-accept ng mga applications for the Loyalty Plus card. Ayan. At si PhilHealth naman po, pinapaalalahanan tayo kung kayo po ay may sakit, may nararamdamang hindi maganda, pa-check up na yan at gamitin ang inyong PhilHealth card. Pag kayo po ay may problema sa inyong mga kasukasuan, kasama po sa PhilHealth Z benefits ang selected orthopedic implants para po ito sa mga nangangailangan ng orthopedic implants para palitan ang nasirang joint, buto, or litid. Kasama po sa benefits na ito ang hip anthroplasty, ayan, hip fixation, petrocarteric fracture, femoral at tibial shaft fracture, kasama din po ang total knee replacement at upper extremities. Ang kailangan nyo lang po ay i-make sure na kayo po ay eligible. Tignan po ninyo kung updated po ba ang mga contributions ninyo sa PhilHealth para yaan po ay inyong magamit sakasakaling kailangan nyo po ng mga implants. At syempre po, nasobrahan ako ng pindot. Ayan. At syempre po, Mentor Tina, kamusta po ang ating mga partners sa Philippines HR Group?
Ang dami nating partners! Infinite Care and the Philippine HR Group, the largest online and most dynamic online HR community in the Philippines with over 300,000 members. Thank you so much. To date, are partnering to promote mental health in the workplace and support the well-being of the HR community. The partnership will provide Infinite Care's mental health support platform to the PHRG members, giving them access to personalized self-care tools and resources, a chat helpline, and virtual sessions with licensed counselor, psychologists, and coaches. If you want to have access, please approach any moderator from the PHRG so that we can direct you to the right direction. Next po! And with that, October 13 na po ang ating PHRG HR Summit 2023 with the topic, the 3Ps, Paradigm and on People Strategy Perspectives. Our speakers, sobrang ganda, sobrang esteem ng ating mga speakers. There's Attorney Paul Sanggalang, Michelle Cordero Garcia, Attorney Josephine Fernandez, Jamie Estrada, Jet Nara, Ivy Paraluman, Borja, we have Sir June Mendoza, we have our own dear Rona Del Florentino, and so much more. Okay. And then we also have, of course, this event will not be complete without me hosting alongside other guapings and guapangs like si Miss Michelle Morales, Sir July IT, Sir Marvin Zoilo, and more. It will be a very jump-packed 8 to 5 event that's not to be missed. So at least it is also a great time for you to network and put a face to the name sa mga taong lagi nyo nakikita sa PHRG na nagko-comment. O, 'di ba? So, dala-dala ng mga calling cards at baka makahanap kayo ng maganda at bagong trabaho sa ating HR Summit 2023 kasi so many employees and employers who are there in very good companies will be present. We're also opening for sponsors na ang bronze sponsorship is 25,000 and above. So, if you want to be part of this, please connect to any moderator so that we can guide you on the process for sponsorship. Next po, we also have the World HR Summit. If you buy the early bird ticket of the PHRG HR conference, the first 100 people who buy will get a free ticket to this World HR Summit, which will be in the Marriott Hotel on October 5 and 6. So the PHRG is a supporting partner to the World HR Summit. Okay? And Coach Darwin Rivers was able to get us free tickets. 2-day event to. So parang pag umattend ka ng PHRG HR Summit, parang meron ka pang 2 extra days of World Summit for parang ang daming mo makikilala pa. There will be 30 plus industry experts, 150 plus leading organizations, 20 plus solution providers, and more. So if you will avail, punta kayo sa PHRG, wag na kayo masyado mag-isip. Kasi you want to be the first 100 people who gets 3 tickets instead of just one. Right? 3 tickets po yan instead of one. 2 different events na lahat sobrang for me, I don't know what to expect, but I know it's only good things. So to get the PHRG VIP Delegate Pass, you must confirm participation to the last, yung nakita natin kaninang HR Summit, and pay the early bird rate of only 3,999 per person. Sobrang mura po yan kasi karamihan doon mapupunta talaga sa hotel and food. So it's you're really just paying for the experience yon before September 30, 2023. So abangan, first 100 confirm be the first 100 confirm so that you can get a free ticket to the PHRG Summit. So to the World HR Summit. And with that, thank you. If you have any questions, please post to the main page of the Philippine HR group. And then please also join our Facebook page. Just search Philippine HR Group and LinkedIn group page, which is the Philippine HR Group, so that you can get more information about what we're talking about. Next po. And with that, it gives me great pleasure to introduce my comare and very respected mentor, Rona Del Fiorentino. She has been an HR practitioner for over 2 decades and is currently the president and CEO of Uprush Social Geekers, an HR solutions and services provider located in the heart of Makati. In short, if you want to have your company policies made, if you want to have a HR consultant in your team, that's Miss Rona. Okay? She has held positions such as Associate Director for HR at CSS Corporate ICT Services and HR Administrative Director for Game Law Philippines, where she has spearheaded programs such as gamification in an effort to increase mindfulness about one's career path and development, and the Digital 201. As a learning and development practitioner, her first foray in the world of training was due to her stint as an HR assistant at Hyundai Makati, where she developed and facilitated the sales trainee program for new hires. The aim of the said program was to develop the selling skills of the newly hired sales agent. She is a graduate of BS Psychology from the Pamantasan ng Lungkod ng Maynila. She has been active in improving the standards of HR in the country through the programs such as Uprush HR Bootcamp, and the said program provides necessary competencies for up-and-coming HR practitioners who would like to become professionals someday. So, for example, if you are a new graduate or you're not as experienced and you want to have a bird's eye view on what is HR, the Uprush HR Bootcamp is a very good program to join in. HR practitioners. Ayun. She also spearheaded the creation and launch of several other training topics as part of Uprush public training offerings, such as the mastery of the Philippine Comp and Ben, basics of payroll processing, understanding mandatory benefits in the Philippines, labor relations and labor cases, HR auditing, and basic and advanced MSXL. She has been recently named as one of the top 100 Filipinos to follow in LinkedIn for inspiration and learning in 2020 and 2021, and is also one of the 100 most fabulous global HR tech leaders by the World HRD Congress. She is one of the top 100 most influential women on LinkedIn for 2021 and 2022, and she's currently working on becoming a full stack web developer. And with that, Ma'am Rona Florentino.
Thank you so much, Mentor Tina. Ayan, sige, share ko na ang aking presentation. Wait lang. Ayan. Okay. So, I am very excited this Sunday afternoon. Matagal-tagal na rin mula nung ako ang facilitate ng isang episode ng HR Cafe. And today, I would like to share naman how as HR professionals, we can go from being local to global in relation din doon sa ating wow quote for the week kanina. Usually kasi tayo sa mga HR, ang aim natin, ang career path natin, ang career trajectory na tinitignan natin is usually local lang talaga. We start as HR assistants, recruitment assistants, or whatnot. And then over time, we become more and more familiar sa kung ano-ano ba yung iba't ibang HR facets. And we strive to become HR director, CHRO within companies here in the Philippines. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. And marami naman talagang mga companies here in the Philippines that are in need of HR professionals. And most of these companies, as they grow, yung HR kasama rin nila na tumataas din ng position. I've worked with different companies, both yung mga small companies, family-owned businesses, and even multinational companies that have headquarters in different parts of the world. And right now, I'm also working, apart from my work in Uprush, I'm also working with a company that's located in Canada who's making use of yung tinatawag nating EOR and PEO. And these are very new concepts na hindi pa ganun kakilala talaga within the Philippine setting, pero nangyayari na siya in other parts of the world. As early as last year, I've seen some companies in other countries na nagme-make use na ng mga PEOs and EORs. Dito sa Pilipinas, medyo recently lang siya talaga nag-start. So one of the things that I'd like to highlight para dun sa ating topic for this afternoon is the fact that the world is changing. And when I say the world is changing, the business world is changing, how HR conduct their business, everything is changing. And this has been happening for quite some time now. Pero with the pandemic, with the COVID, mas bumilis yung change na nangyayari. In the past, yung concept ng remote work is typically nakafocus lang siya or relegated lang siya dun sa ating mga virtual assistants, mga freelancers, mga gig workers. Sila lang talaga yung nakakaintindi ng ano bang ibig sabihin ng remote work. But when pandemic happened and countries had a lockdown, companies had to quickly switch to a different model. They had employees working from home. Nung mangyari yon, a lot of businesses realized that they can actually conduct their business without having to have a brick and mortar na office space or yung usual natin or yung traditional natin na setup ng mga offices. They realize that this particular expense is something that they can remove and save on and just get people to work from their homes, from the comfort of their homes, and then use that budget for, other benefits that they can provide. A lot of companies realized this and started shifting to a different model. There are companies who started doing a 100% remote or digital first. There are companies na meron silang hybrid setup where you can work remotely and then siguro once or twice a week, a month, kailangan nyo lang pumunta sa office for sync, touch base, and stuff like that. And there are those na, because of the nature of their business, hindi talaga kaya na mag-hybrid or mag-remote work, so they have to call their employees back to the office. These are all different business models na before pandemic did not existed here in the did not exist here in the Philippines. Wala tayong konsepto pa for full-time employees na talagang naka-remote work. And siguro that it's actually one of the things that I am proud of kasi with Uprush, even before pandemic, we already were doing 100% remote work. But going back to our topic, masyado nang marami naging changes in the business right now na tayo bilang mga HR, dapat nakakasunod tayo. And we can rant about yung mga applicants namin ngayon, gusto nila yung mga naka-remote work or at least hybrid. We can rant about that, but it doesn't change the fact that businesses are changing their models, applicants are changing their preferences, and someone's got to give. Okay? May isa na kailangan mag-adjust. Now, businesses can always say now we're not going to adjust, kailangan nyo bumalik sa office because it's the need of the business. But in some cases, if employees can see na parang kaya naman yung work na gawin sa bahay, mahirap panindigan yung mga ganong reasoning. Kaya nga yung mga businesses, para merong kumbaga win-win on both ends, ang ginagawa nila is nagkakaroon na lang sila ng hybrid na setup. Now, because the business is changing, how we do business is changing, the talent market is changing, their preferences are changing, tayo sa HR, we also have to change. And iniisip natin minsan na ang hirap na maka-adapt do sa mga ganitong changes. Ang hirap na dito sa Pilipinas pa lang, problema ko na yung mga administrative task, problema ko na yung strategic task. Paano ko pa gagawin na I would indulge in something like a remote work, and how do I become a global HR leader at some point kung yun yung career trajectory na gusto ninyo. The thing is, local and global HR ay hindi actually nagkakalayo. Okay? Whether you're a local HR or a global HR, you still have to work on talent acquisition, you still have to work on performance management, you still have to work on learning and development, and you still have to work on total rewards framework. In fact, since I'm working with a remote company right now that's located in Canada, you might think na, kailangan siguro pag yung mga training dapat sa Canada din or dapat naka-align sa kung ano man yung labor laws ng Canada. To some extent, yes. But yung mga basic concepts, for example, competency framework, creation of the competency framework or identification of competencies, this is a global concept. This is not something that is sa Pilipinas lang nangyayari or sa Canada lang nangyayari or other parts of the world lang nangyayari. This is something that all HR professionals need to understand and need to be familiar with. So much so that when it comes to competency framework and whenever I need to, refresh my memory about it, really understand what it's all about, I don't have to go to an international company for training. I actually attended just recently a training with PSTD, Philippine Society for Talent Development, that has to do with competency framework. So, yung concept kasi ay hindi naman siya nag-iiba pag lumipat ka ng ibang bansa. Same pa din yon. Even with talent acquisition, same pa din yan. The challenges that we have here in the Philippines when it comes to talent acquisition is the same challenges that global companies also experience. Nagiging problema din nila yung mga companies that can offer 100% remote work. Kasi it offers the employees yung chance na magtrabaho while they're looking after their kids, their family, etc. So yun din ang preference ng mga employees sa ibang bansa, sa ibang parts of the world. So challenge din siya para sa mga global companies or international companies or companies located in other parts of the world na kailangan mag-hire at kailangan na nasa loob ng office. Yung sinasabi natin na sa Pilipinas lang naman yung sobrang taas ng requirements pero ang baba ng sweldo, these are the same things that some employees in other parts of the world also complain about. So whenever we are faced with these challenges, with these concerns, we have to keep in mind na it might look like it's a local problem, but in reality, it's also a problem that is being experienced by global companies and by companies that are located in other parts of the world. Same lang yan. Yung mga concepts, same lang yan. How we attract candidates, how we retain them, how we manage their performance, the basic concept, basic theories, basic practices, core practices, lahat yan ay pare-pareho. Pero sa nagkakaiba. As an HR professional, if you want to become a global leader, Okay? Or if you want to be in the global stage, kahit hindi leader, kahit as an HR professional, you want to work with global companies, or you want to, work na hindi ka lang nakafocus sa Philippines, may mga bagay na kailangan mong maintindihan. Number one, you need to have proficiency in labor laws for different geos. Ibig sabihin, hindi po pwede nang alam mo lang yung labor code sa Pilipinas. Kailangan aaralin mo din yung ibang mga labor code. For example, we are working, in Uprosh, we are working with a company right now that is located in Singapore, and the person who's handling that has to be familiar and has to understand kung ano man yung labor law sa Singapore. Doesn't mean na yun lang yung kanyang focus. The person actually has a background in law, which makes it easier for her to understand ano ba yung mga labor laws sa Singapore, sa Malaysia, at sa Indonesia, para alam niya kung paano i-manage. Kasi iba-iba ang mga requirements pagdating sa pag-prepare ng contracts, pagdating do sa mga iba't ibang geos. Same is true in my case, I also have to be familiar dun sa mga labor laws in Canada, in let's say Bulgaria, in Colombia, kasi if for example I need to do disciplinary action for these employees, kailangan alam ko kung ano ba yung nire-require ng batas nila. Kung sa atin meron tayong tinatawag na due process at kailangan may NTE and NOD, sa kanila ba paano yung proseso? If I need to terminate them due to just cause, paano ba yung proseso sa kanila? Can I just terminate them even though meron silang ganitong medical certificate or meron silang ganitong mga accommodations, pwede ba silang i-terminate? So, kailangan familiar tayo doon. And if you want to be familiar with that, you have to start first doon sa familiarity with the Philippine Labor Code. One of the things that I have noticed with some HR professionals, we're very quick to ask online but very slow to check yung tamang reference for that. Magtatanong tayo sa Philippines HR group, not that it's bad, but before we ask sa Philippines HR group, we have to make sure first that dun muna tayo sa pinaka-source, yung tinatawag nating source of truth natin pagdating sa labor laws, which is yung ating Philippine Labor Code. It's not more about being thoroughly familiar and memorizing the Philippine Labor Code. It's about being discerning sa kung saan ba tayo dapat tumakbo. Kasi isa to sa mga skill na kakailanganin ninyo if you want to be a global HR leader. More often than not, you would be on your own and you have to figure things out on your own. You can ask questions from your head, but there is an expectation that you know where to get the questions pag walang makakatulong sa'yo, or where to get the answers pag walang makakatulong sa'yo. So dapat tayo, ngayon pa lang, dinidevelop na natin yung ability to determine saan ko nga ba makukuha yung pinaka tamang sagot, pinaka-objective na sagot, nang hindi ako nagtatanong sa ibang tao. And in our case, it's the Philippine Labor Code and the Omnibus Rules implementing the Labor Code. We should also check yung mga department orders, yung mga Supreme Court jurisprudences, para alam natin paano i-manage yung iba't ibang mga situation. If you want to be a global HR, and this is also one of the difference between local and global HR, is familiarity with how compensation and benefits is being done in different geos. In the Philippines, ang kailangan nating sundin is yung mga minimum wage, ano ba yung dapat nating i-deduct sa kanila, paano ba yung taxation natin, ano ba yung mga leaves na po pwede nating ibigay sa kanila. While in other countries, you still have to be familiar with that, may mga benefits na dapat alam nyo din siya. So for example, in the US, dapat familiar kayo on how to implement FMLA. Dapat alam din natin kung paano pag kunwari meron silang mga work-related injuries, work-related sickness, paano ba yung mga insurance nila, ano ba yung mga benefits na po pwede nating i-maximize for their situation. You need to be familiar with that. As a local HR, pwede nyo simulan yan by making sure that you're also familiar sa kung ano ba yung mga mandated benefits natin. How you determine ano yung mga mandated benefits and how you implement that will shape how you are when you become a global HR leader. Minsan kasi, and you have to keep this in mind, when you're a global HR leader, you are responsible not just for one area, you're responsible for a lot of people, a lot of audience. So you need to be very careful kasi baka makita yung action mo as being discriminatory. And in Philippines, madali tayo dito sa mabilis tayong maawa, and sometimes the awa is not a good way to go about it. We need to be empathetic hindi dapat palaging sympathetic. Kasi minsan, pag nasobrahan tayo sa sympathy, we give more than what is allowed by law, and the practice continues, and then it becomes a policy na hindi na natin po pwedeng mabawi. Ay isa sa mga usual na, and some people do not like this. Some HR professionals would usually comment on my answer na masyadong mahigpit or kung ano pa man. But we need to be careful with how we administer yung mga benefits natin. One good example is pag merong gynecological disorder. By law, if you have gynecological disorder and you're going to undergo a medical procedure, ang benefit na po pwede mong i-avail is yung ating special leave for women. And a lot of HR will say na, especially for women, sabay mo na yung SSS. But the best application for this actually is unahin ang special leave for women, then company sick leave, then if kailangan pa ng additional days, you can make use of yung inyo pong SSS sickness benefit. It allows for a longer period for recuperation at hindi kayo, kumbaga, hindi kayo nagkakaroon ng double na compensation or double na administration ng benefit. Kasi at the end of the day, disadvantageous din yun sa employee. Yung mga ganong kind of thinking, pag kayo ay nasa global HR, kailangan alam nyo kung paano i-defend yun. And usually kasi, and I've seen this a lot of times when I am working with a global company, and I have a team working with them as well, pag ang masyado tayong mapagbigay, kino-question yun, china-challenge yun. Why are you seemingly, kumbaga, rewarding someone for not being able to take care of their health or for giving them more than what is required by law. Kasi pag ganun, what about yung ating mga other employees na maaaring wala sila nung ganong condition and they are not able to take advantage of this. So makikita ngayon nila na bakit ganun? Bakit parang merong favoritism or discrimination? So we have to be careful with that kung paano natin ini-implement yung mga benefits. And sa atin, tayo kasi we are non-confrontational. We do not like confrontation. But in other countries, they are very outspoken. They can easily say what's on their mind at hindi sila natatakot na baka may ma-hurt sila na feelings. And kaya nga may konsepto tayo ng Karen, di ba? And it happens a lot of times na pag meron kayong binigay at nasobrahan kayo ng bigay, ang hirap pag kinwestiyon na ng ibang tao na bakit siya merong ganito. Bakit ganito yung implementation? Bakit hindi ganito? And we have to be very careful and we have to be very analytical and objective para ma-make sure natin na hindi natitake advantage ng sobra or hindi rin naman nadedehado yung mga empleyado natin pag sila ay nagtitake advantage nitong mga benefits na to. We have to be very careful with that. Isa pa sa kailangan nating tandaan, if you are a global HR, you now have a wider audience. Bilang mga HR, ang usual na complaints na naririnig namin sa Philippines HR group is that ang hirap magpa-approve. Binresent ko na lahat sa boss ko pero parang ang hirap magkaroon ng buy-in. Or sasabihin natin, yan kasi yung gusto ng management sinusunod ko lang naman kasi baka mawalan ako ng trabaho. Hindi tayo po pwedeng ganun. Hindi po pwede yung ganung mindset if you want to become a global HR. You have to understand where the practices are coming from, ano yung policy, why we have that policy in the first place, how do we protect the company, how do we protect the employees, and then we have to make sure that we are able to justify that when we are being questioned. Wider audience would also mean that you have to present your projects, your programs, not just dun sa inyong mga local na mga employees, but also dun sa inyong mga global leaders. And you have to make sure that whatever programs or projects you have is aligned dun sa kung ano ba yung overall na program or initiatives ng isang global company. Hindi kayo po pwede na mag-create ng mga programs out of thin air without putting consideration sa kung ano ba yung mga programs in place ng global company. Kasi hindi po pwede ng isang GEO sobrang dami niyang na-enjoy na mga benefits or na mga let's say in terms of mga privileges compared to other GEOs. Kailangan kung ano yung na-enjoy ng iba, kapareho nung na-enjoy ng other GEOs, or at least there is something that's related to that na po pwedeng do sa GEO na yun ma-i-implement or yung po pwede nilang ma-enjoy kapalit nung kung ano man yung hindi nila na-enjoy sa inyo. And this can be quite challenging kasi sa totoo lang, ang daming mandatory leaves sa Pilipinas compared sa mandatory leaves sa karamihan ng ibang bansa. For example, tayo, meron tayong special leave for women, meron tayong vowsy leave, meron tayong maternity leave, meron tayong solo parent leave. Sa ibang bansa, wala silang masyado noon. Usually, yung basic lang, maternity, paternity, and let's say sick leave, yung mga sickness related na mga injuries, yun lang yung cover nila. Sa atin marami tayo noon. Marami din tayong mga holidays. So paano mo ngayon babalansehin 'yon so that hindi naman dehado din yung ibang mga GEOs, and they are also able to enjoy the same number of time offs that we have here in the Philippines and that they have within their GEOs. At the same time, dapat naiintindihan din natin yung nuances ng bawat kultura ng mga geos na kino-cover natin. If you want to become a global HR, start right now in understanding ano ba yung pagkakaiba-iba ng mga culture, and start understanding ano ba yung diversity, ano ba yung inclusion. Kasi yung ibang mga bansa, they are very heavy on that. If you're working for a local company right now, and you would want to become a part of a multinational company within the Philippines, isa yan sa mga kailangan yung pag-aralan. Iba ang kultura sa mga multinational companies, iba ang kultura sa mga local companies, and when you are in the global stage, iba ang kultura ng bawat geos na i-cover ninyo. For example, I am working right now with geos in Canada, in Bulgaria, in Colombia, and sometimes even Singapore. And how I deal with them differs from each other. Kasi iba-iba yung kanilang mga kultura at iba-iba yung kung paano sila mag-communicate ng kanilang mga ideas, at iba-iba din yung kung paano sila mag-handle pag kinwestiyon or challenge yung kanilang mga ideas. So you have to be particularly familiar with that, and you know kung paano mo dapat i-hold yung sarili mo compared to these people. If you're working mostly with, let's say, people coming from the US, dapat yung pagiging outspoken mo, kailangan maano mo siya, mahasa mo siya. Although yung mga Americans kasi, yung mga nasa mga geo sa US, they are familiar with the culture here in the Philippines. And they are also a bit careful with how they communicate. They are aware na ang mga Pilipino, usually hindi tayo confrontational, and that we tend to appeal to the emotions. So nag-a-adjust sila. But certain cultures, let's say for example mga European cultures, they are not like that. They are very upfront, at hindi rin naman kasi sila madaling naapektuhan if someone challenges yung kanilang thoughts and opinion. So dapat naiintindihan natin yung mga differences na yon. Kung kayo ay local HR, and you want to become part of multinational companies, dapat kaya nyong i-express yung inyong mga thoughts, yung inyong opinion in a way na madali siyang maintindihan. Which brings me to my next point. If you want to become an HR in a global stage, yung talagang yung audience ninyo ay mas wide, yung coverage ninyo ay hindi lang Pilipinas, kung hindi iba't ibang mga lugar, or if you want to become a global leader na talagang nagtatrabaho outside of the Philippines, ikaw yung HR for, let's say, you're located in Singapore at doon ka na nag-work, or you're located in the US, doon ka na nag-work, you would want to become someone like that, coming from the Philippines and coming from a local company. There are some things that you need to keep in mind. And this is also something that I realized when I start working with multinational companies. Number one, you have to embrace technology. Regardless of the industry that you are in, ang ibang bansa ay medyo advanced na sila when it comes to technology. Sa Pilipinas, medyo nahuhuli pa tayo. Ano pa tayo we are very cautious dun sa kung ano yung mga technology na gagamitin natin. As much as possible, if kaya naman ng Google Sheet or Excel, usually pagtsatsagaan natin yun. But in other countries, hindi na ganun yung nagiging move nila. Meron talaga silang mga platforms or technology na ginagamit to take better care of their employees. Sa ibang bansa kasi naiintindihan nila na itong mga administrative tasks, especially if they are programmable, hindi na dapat ito pinoproblema pa ng isang HR. Hindi na dapat siya masyadong administrative. Kung meron mang administrative side, this would fall into making sure lang na yung mga platforms are updated. Tayo kasi nandun pa tayo sa very particular tayo na dapat meron silang tigi-tigisang 201 folder na talagang tangible na folder, dapat kumpleto yung mga documents, kailangan dapat yung mga hard copy ng mga documents, printouts and everything dapat nandun pa. It's not that ginusto natin ito. It's just that if we would also look at yung ating mga batas, medyo nakaano pa rin kasi siya. Nandun pa rin siya sa traditional. Fortunately, medyo nagbabago naman na. Nagkakaroon naman tayo ng mga changes. For example, way back, pagdating sa mga reports kay Dole, talagang hard copy yan na isasubmit mo. Pero ngayon, meron na tayong reports.dole.gov.ph. Sa SSS, dati pag mag-file ka ng mga notification, kailangan yung hard copy isasubmit mo. Pero ngayon, pwede na tayong mag-file online at mapaprocess na siya. And even with pag-ibig, yung mga loans, pwede ka na rin mag-process online. Dati, hindi yan possible. Even yung mga submission ng reports, hindi yan possible na online isasubmit. Lahat yan ay hard copy. So, etong mga changes na to, dapat sumasabay tayo dito. Hindi lang dapat alam natin itong mga platforms na to dahil required na doon tayo mag-file, but we should also look beyond that and see ano ba sa ginagawa natin, yung programmable, yung paulit-ulit. Alin doon ang pwede nating i-delegate sa mga platforms at technology na available sa market right now. For example, there's still very few companies that make use of applicant tracking systems kasi pwede naman daw na Excel or Google Sheet. True, pwede naman kung may maayos naman kayong proseso, but still, it would take time. And it would also lead doon sa paulit-ulit kayong hihingi ng mga resume or pag re-require nyo yung applicant ninyo na magdala ng mga resume. So, tignan ninyo, kung meron naman kayong applicant tracking system, hindi nyo na ngayon kailangan pa i-require si employee or si applicant na magdala ng kanilang mga CV or resume kasi nandun na siya, available na siya, can be accessed by anyone na merong access dun sa applicant na yon. Pwede nyo na ilagay yung mga notes nyo dun and share it with somebody else. You can even create scorecards and rating scales para sa mga interview, all within your applicant tracking system. So, hindi na kailangan ng masyadong maraming papel. There are also platforms right now that would allow you to record interviews of applicants so that you do not take too much time in doing the initial interview. Pwedeng mag-submit na lang sila nung kanilang mga recorded na interviews and then from there, you can decide kung i-endorse mo ba sila sa next step or hindi na. So, napapadali niya ngayon yung trabaho and you now have more time to be strategic rather than administrative. This is very important kasi when you are a global leader or when you are working in a global company, whether you're under an EOR or PEO, or you are a part of a multinational company, the task that they would expect from you is more strategic rather than administrative. Kasi yung administrative, pwede na siyang i-automate. And the more we are able to quickly switch to a strategic mindset, mas madali ngayon tayong mapapansin at mas madali tayong makaka-move up in a global company. You also need to improve your communication skills. I think it has to do with the quality of education right now, but over time, I am noticing that there seems to be a decline in how we express ourselves, especially in English. Pwede nating sabihin na, panay Pilipino naman tayo, but kailangan pa ng English? It's not a measure of intelligence. To some degree, it might be true, but if you want to become a global leader at hindi lang tayo panay sana all, if you want to work for a multinational company, one of the things that you have to be good at is how you express yourself. Not just in written, but orally as well. Dapat kaya mo na i-express yung thoughts mo in English in an understandable manner. Dapat kaya mong mag-create ng mga policies, procedures, memo, emails in English na madali siyang maintindihan. Marami ng mga platforms, again, na pwedeng mag-check ng grammar ninyo when you write. Pag oral, yun lang yung magiging problema kasi wala ka namang platform na pwedeng gamitin na i-correct yung grammar mo habang nagsasalita ka. So you need to be aware how you express yourself ano ba yung mga areas for improvement mo when you're speaking para mas umangat ka or maka-move up ka sa corporate ladder within a global company or for you to be considered in a global company. Kasi syempre when they interview you and you cannot express yourself well, how are you going to communicate with the employees themselves? Dapat alam mo yung mga how you can talk in an informal manner, mga slang, para when you talk to the employees, walang magiging miscommunication. Kasi hindi rin naman po pwede na sobrang formal ng English mo palagi. During interview, possible, but when you are speaking to employees, kailangan maintindihan ka nila. So how can they understand you if masyadong formal ka or masyado kang technical? So dapat mahasa mo yung communication skills mo. You also need to develop grit and resiliency. Importante to kasi tayo bilang mga Pilipino, madali tayong ma-hurt. Sabi ko nga kanina, hindi tayo mahilig sa confrontation. Pag kinwestiyon tayo, nagkakaroon kagad tayo ng self-doubt or nagiging defensive kagad tayo. When you are in a global setting, hindi ka po pwedeng madaling ma-hurt, hindi rin po pwede na masyado mong dinidibdib kung ano man yung comment sa'yo. Kasi more often than not, yung comments sa'yo ng mga katrabaho mo or nung boss mo, these are being given to you in an objective manner at hindi naman talaga nila minimin na makasakit. Of course, doesn't mean na lahat ng magiging boss mo ay okay na boss or talagang someone who would help you. Sometimes you would still come across people na hindi ganun ka-okay na leader na talagang hindi rin nila alam how to be a good manager. But you have to have grit. Ibig sabihin, kahit gaano ka-challenging yung situation, you know how to move forward, matatag ang loob mo at hindi ka basta-basta nasasaktan, and you have to show resiliency. Pag nag-fail, dapat alam mo how you can get back on your feet. Kasi you will have failures. Your bosses, especially in global setting, which is very different sa practice sa Philippines, managers, leaders in global setting do not expect you to be perfect. Here in the Philippines, we expect people to be perfect. We expect our employees na hindi sila nagkakamali. Pag nagkamali sila, nandun kagad tayo sa, negligence, inefficiency, nandun kagad tayo. Mabilis tayo doon sa disciplinary action. Mabagal tayo sa pag-iintindi nung kung bakit nangyari yon. In a global setting, it's different. Nandun kagad sila sa bakit nangyari to. Why did it happen? What's the root cause? Mabilis sila in analyzing the root cause of a problem, which is the reason why hindi sila heavy on dapat perfect ka. And you would hear this a lot, 'di ba nga sabi nila, fail fast. Okay? And most global companies, especially yung mga known brands, think of Netflix, think of Spotify, think of those companies. Bakit yung mga companies na to ay nag-grow? At bakit yung mga employees dito, hindi nyo man masyadong naririnig, pero wala rin kayong naririnig na nagkakaroon ng mass exodus ng mga employees. Bakit? Kasi sa kanila, mabilis kang mag-fail, mabilis mong matututunan how to do things. Pero hindi lang sila nagfo-focus sa failure. Nagfo-focus sila doon sa resiliency. If you failed in this aspect, bakit sa tingin mo nag-fail ka? How do you plan to address that? Nandun kagad sila. Nandun sila so anong gagawin natin? Ano yung pwede natin gawin to keep this from happening again? Or to at least have checks in place para hindi ma-ensure natin na kung mangyari man ito, very minimal yung magiging impact. So you have to develop that kind of resiliency na pag nagkamali ka, you don't beat yourself up and nandun ka kagad sa problem-solving mode. Ano yung naging problema and how do I prevent this from happening again or at least minimize yung impact nitong ganitong uri ng problema. Hirap tayo dyan bilang mga Pilipino kasi dahil nga sa medyo emotional tayo, it takes time for us na mag-spring back from a problem or from a failure. Nandun kagad tayo sa, ang tanga-tanga ko naman, ba't di ko naisip yun? Or we beat ourselves up, masyado tayong na-depress, kaya nga usually sa Philippines HR group, ang mga comments dyan or mga post na nakukuha namin is nasigawan ako, na-hurt ako, so ngayon nagkakaroon ako ng mental health problems. But true, merong mga boss na talagang mape-pressure ka, may stress ka, at hindi talaga magandang boss kaya magkakaroon ka talaga ng anxiety. But there are also instances when our bosses are calling us out, but we are looking at it as a personal attack. When you are in a global stage, hindi mo po pwedeng isipin na everything is a personal attack. Nandun ka dapat sa what can I learn from this particular situation? Or saan ba nagagaling tong boss ko? At paano ko ba masusolusyonan yung gusto niyang mangyari? And you will have boss that sometimes will cuss you out, and you will have bosses na hindi kayo ka-cuss out but they will challenge the way you think. At mayroon ka rin mga boss na um, one-liner lang pag nagagalit sila. Okay? And you have to take this with a grain of salt, at ikaw ay dapat na hindi mo iisipin na it's a personal attack, and focus on the problem solving. Kasi lilipas yon. That's one of the things that's different with local, especially sa Philippines, HR and with global HR. Sa tayo kasi, pag napagalitan tayo ng mga boss natin or may nagawa tayong mali, oftentimes the boss will also hang on to that. And may isip at may isip yun palagi. And sometimes, it can become a joke, bibiruin ka about it, so minsan ma-hurt ka pa din. But in a global setting, once na nalabas na nila yung galit nila, hindi yun nagtatagal. Okay? After nun, okay na sila. Sa Pilipinas, hindi tayo masyado sa ganun. Pag Pinoy yung boss natin, minsan naiisip pa rin yan. But tignan ninyo pag ang boss ninyo ay usually expat. Pag expat, pag nabitawan na nila, nasabi na nila kung ano yung problema, nagalit na sila, after some time, after sometimes pagkatapos kinabukasan lang, okay na sila, hindi na nila maaalala yun. Wala na. And if you bring it up to them, sasabihin lang sa'yo na it's done. No problem about it. We've already resolved that. Hindi na sila magdi-deal doon. Hindi na nila uungkatin yon kasi sa kanila, tapos na. In global setting, ganun din usually ang kanilang behavior. Tapos na yan, okay na tayo, na-address na natin yan, move on na tayo sa ibang problema naman or ibang situation that we need to deal with. Hindi sila tumatagal dun sa emotion na yon. You also have to develop a learning mindset. Minsan kasi tayo bilang mga HR, dahil busy tayo, dahil masyado tayong maraming ginagawa, hindi na tayo nagtitake ng time para mag-aral. Or, ang reasoning natin, walang budget. Minsan kasi, hindi rin natin alam na meron tayong mga options. For example, Harvard University actually offers, do sa kanilang online website, they actually offer free courses, short courses that you can take during your free time, during your rest day, na marami na kagad kayong matututunan. You also have Coursera. There was a time that UST and Coursera had a partnership, and you can enroll in as many courses as you can para matuto ka. And the courses run anywhere from leadership to technical courses to soft skills. Ang dami. Alam nyo kung ano nangyari doon sa program na yon? DOST had a hard time getting people to sign up. Sobrang konti nung mga Pilipino na nag-sign up for those free courses. Not because hindi natin alam, kasi this was posted in many websites, many pages, ang daming mga tao na nagsasabi about this. Kaya lang kasi nandun palagi tayo sa mindset na, ang dami ko pang ginagawa next time na lang. When in reality, yung ang dami nating ginagawa is actually administrative task that's programmable and that we can automate. Pero dahil sa we're so used to ginagawa natin siya, and we feel that if hindi tayo ang gagawa, baka mali yung maging information, ayaw nating bitawan. Automate those. Anything that consumes your time na programmable naman, na paulit-ulit, i-automate nyo na lahat yon. Find a way on how you can have it automated. Find a way on how you can simplify your work so that you have more time for your self-development and you have more time to be strategic thinker rather than someone na administrative lang yung proficiency. So yung mga learning platforms, take the time na mag-subscribe dun sa mga courses na sa tingin nyo makakatulong sa inyo. I actually have a lot of courses enrolled in Udemy simply because I know that pag tumigil ako sa learning, mahuhuli ako. Isa sa magandang example dito would be Excel. Very few HR professionals have proficiency in Excel. Yung kanilang proficiency is limited doon sa mga basic functions like adding content of one cell to the next, concatenation, hanggang ganun lang. Pag kunwari kailangan ng i-extract yung first name from, let's say, the full name, hindi na nila alam kung paano gagawin yon. And they do not take the time to study those or understand those, even though that is actually considered as basic Excel. So pag pumunta kayo sa Udemy, ang dami niyong matututunan doon sa Excel pa lang that can help you in automating yung kung paano nyo piniprepare yung reports nyo, dashboards nyo, etc. Isa sa mga latest na natutunan ko kumbaga is having a Google Sheet and using that to create a Looker Studio. Usually, ang problema natin sa HR is, paano ko ba ipepresent yung report ko? How do I create a dashboard that automatically updates based on what I enter in the database and automatically sends out a report to my immediate heads or to the people, to my stakeholders, para hindi ko na siya paulit-ulit na ginagawa. And very few HR professionals have thought of yung Google Studio or Google Looker Studio, which is actually a dashboard that pulls information from your Google Sheet and presents it in such a way na uh, real-time ang update and your leaders can readily understand kung ano ba yung kailangan nilang malaman from the report or ano ba yung mga information na dapat nilang makita from the report. It also allows you to automatically send the reports on a specified schedule. Like in my case, I have one report that's supposed to send out every Friday 6 p.m. na nandun lahat yung mga pinaka-recent na mga exits, magkano yung binayaran namin in terms of separation pay, ilan ang voluntary, ilan ang involuntary, sang geo sila nang gagaling, Pilipinas ba to, Colombia ba to, US ba to, Canada ba to. And I don't have to spend too much time preparing the report. All I have to do is make sure that the database is updated. And once updated na yon, dahil na-setup ko na yung Looker Studio, automatic na yon na i-update niya lahat yung reports and automatic na every Friday 6 p.m. marireceive yon ng mga stakeholders ko. And if they have questions, they can reach out to me. But other than that, everything should be fairly visible, fairly and straightforward na ma-understand nila mula doon sa dashboard itself. And I learned all of this from Udemy, from observing people, and from, trying to figure out, pag Google lang ako, trying to figure out how to create a dashboard without having to create a dashboard every now and then. And that's where I came across yun yung Looker Studio. So when you develop a learning mindset, when you are curious, nandun palagi yung how do I make this simpler? How do I automate this? How do I create something that's self-sufficient and I don't have to work on it every Friday or every Thursday night na tipong kakainin yung oras ko. How do I go about it? When you start looking at things that way, mas madali kayo makakahanap ng pupwedeng i-automate, mas madali nyo magagawa yung trabaho ninyo, mas marami kayong matututunan, at mas magiging marketable ngayon kayo for global companies or for multinational companies. Kasi during interview, you can easily say na during my stint with this company, I was able to create this. I was able to lower yung aming lost man hours because I had this automation. Pwede mo ngayon ipagyabang yun during interview. Kasi that's a skill that most multinational companies are looking for. Hindi lang yung understanding noong kung ano yung mga platforms, but yung thought process mo, kung paano ka, how you got from point A to point B, that matters a lot to them. Kasi hindi sa lahat ng pagkakataon, kaya ka nilang i-handhold. Meron ako mga nakikita sa Philippines HR group na usually ang sasabihin nila, ano po ba yung training na kailangan ko? Yung company kasi na pinasukan ko, hindi man lang ako tinrain. So magre-resign na ako kasi wala man lang training. Companies usually hire not because they want to train someone. Usually they need someone who can hit the ground running from day one. Very few yung companies na talagang meron pa silang formal training para alam mo kung anong ginagawa mo. Best practices, of course, have this sort of onboarding or have this hard coded in your own onboarding para alam yung processes and procedures. But if you know these things from day one or even before day one, may advantage ka na. Iba na kagad yung tingin sa'yo kasi alam nila na, uy, proficient siya dito and pwede namin siyang itap kagad for the different projects that we have. That's actually one of the reasons or one of the things na chinek sa akin when I applied for the remote company in Canada. Chinek nila yung proficiency ko with Excel and with Google kasi they need someone na magaling mag-prepare ng reports. And when I got hired, that is one of the things that I started working on. And then I started making sure na kasi hindi pa nila alam kung paano siya ipipresent. They're more familiar with Tableau, but Tableau is ginagamit siya ng aming analytics team and we don't have the budget or the capacity na magkaroon ng isa pang subscription for our department kasi hindi naman kami heavy on reports, but we do have reports that we need to submit to our stakeholders. So paano gagawin? And that's when I came across yung Looker Studio nga, and I broached or recommended the idea to my immediate head, who happens to be an American actually. I told her na I have this platform, I know this platform, I can use this platform to present the reports, automate it so that it sends out a report, an update every Friday 6 p.m. or actually 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time para hindi na tayo yung tipong magte-take time pa sa pagpe-prepare or magko-call pa ng meeting para lang i-discuss. Everything is there. We can make it very straightforward, simple words para madali lang maintindihan, and then we can use that report. And when I created that, nakita nung boss ko and they saw the potential for that, nakita din ng ibang stakeholders yung potential for that as being the source of truth. They started using that as their reference, from the finance team to the operations team to determine kung ano ba yung nangyayari and to even project kung ano ba yung magiging attrition rate namin for the quarter, for the year, for the following month. So do not be afraid to learn, to question, to challenge, and to also seek help and to also talk to your immediate head. Tayo kasi sa Pilipinas, takot tayo makipag-usap sa immediate head. Dahil nga may expectation na alam na natin at perfect dapat tayo, takot ngayon tayong humingi ng tulong dun sa mga stakeholders natin or sa immediate head natin. When you are a global or when you want to become or if you want to become a global person, global HR, professional, dapat yan ang unang-unang kaya mong gawin. Ang humingi ng tulong pag hindi mo alam kung ano yung kailangan mong gawin. Tulad nga ng sabi ng boss ko, it is perfectly okay to not know things. Kasi hindi naman lahat ng bagay alam natin. At hindi lahat ng bagay kaya nating i-Google search. So pag hindi mo alam kung anong gagawin, you've exhausted all efforts, then you ask your immediate head. And I would always reach out to my immediate head if there's something that's bothering me or is not okay with me. So pag nakikita ko na hindi siya okay or palagay ko pwede pat nating i-improve ito, sinasabihan ko siya. Or katulad doon sa dashboard na yon, because I am the owner of that, if I see na, uy, mukhang magiging importante tong information na to sa aking stakeholder, ini-incorporate ko na kagad and then i-heads up ko na lang siya. And usually pag nakita niya na, nga, hindi ko naisip ito, siya din mismo sasabihin niya na hindi niya alam yung mga bagay or hindi niya na-realize yung mga bagay. Dapat tigilan na natin yung mindset na dapat alam natin lahat. Kasi hindi natin alam lahat and we also need the help of other people. And sometimes, we only get the information or we only get to the point na gets na natin kung ano yung gagawin as time goes by. So katulad nun, I built the foundation for the dashboard and then over time, I realized na, uy, dapat itong information na to, hindi to ganun ka-importante, alisin na natin. Or itong information na to, this will be impactful to my stakeholders, kailangan ilagay ko ito. Which again brings us back to communication skills. Kasi dapat alam ninyo kung ano ba yung kailangan na information ng inyong stakeholders, ng audience ninyo. Hindi yung tipo na pag gumawa kayo ng dashboard, nilagay nyo na lahat ng information doon. That doesn't work pag global kayo. Kasi pag global, very quick pace sila, mabilis yung mga trabaho, mabilis yung changes, mabilis yung kanilang way of managing things, of communicating things. Hindi ka po pwedeng mag-aantay ka ng bibigyan ka ng instructions na usually nangyayari sa Pilipinas. Nag-aantay tayo ng kung ano ba yung instruction. Wala pa kasing sinabi si boss nihintay ko pa yung approval. Sa global setup, hindi po pwede yon. If you're not getting the information that you need and you really need that information, you reach out to the person. You either reach out or you escalate or you get somebody to help you to get the information that you need. Or if talagang wala, you should be the one looking at saan ko ba po pwedeng makuha tong information na to. Hindi ka po pwedeng mag-antay. Pero dapat ikaw din ay may humility. Okay? You're curious, but you remain humble. Even if you have launched a number of projects within your company, you have to look at it as something na palaging, this is our effort. Okay? Hindi ka po pwede na yung pabibo ka, tulad ng ginagawa natin dito sa Pilipinas na meron tayong mga office mates na usually, yung tinatawag nating Jollibee, yung mga bida-bida. In a global setting, hindi uso yung bida-bida. True, congratulations, you were able to do that. That's it. Okay? They will congratulate you. They will highlight what you have done. But after that, it is expected that you would still work on other projects at hindi ka one hit wonder na isa lang tapos yun na yun. Expected ka to every now and then pitch in ideas, new ideas, come up with better way of doing things, and you are also expected to tap other people to help you launch a project, create a project, hindi yung ikaw lang mag-isa. Hindi, at least from my experience, hindi nila binavalue yung may messiah complex na yung tipong ako lang ang makakasagot ng lahat ng problema sa mundo. Hindi. Usually sila, they value more yung being able to bring in people together, work on a project, and highlight ano ba yung naging contribution ng bawat isa. And you should also know how to celebrate yung mga wins na yon, even the smallest win. Tayo kasi sa Pilipinas, sinicelebrate lang natin pag major win. Sila hindi. When you are in a global setting, marirealize mo na even yung small wins, sinicelebrate yan. When you are able to go through a week na hindi ka nag-breakdown, hindi ka na-stress, hindi ka na-pressure, and you're able to keep your head up, sinicelebrate nila yan na yay, we've come to Friday na, nakasurvive tayo. Good job on keeping your head up. Good job Rona for this. Good job. They are very I would say, mabilis sila na mag-congratulate on small wins. Tayo kasi sa Pilipinas, yung small wins sa atin, hindi natin yun sineselebrate. Sila very generous sila doon. And you have to start working on that, celebrating the small wins kasi that would prove handy to you pag kayo ay nasa global setting na. Yung ability to see yung mga small wins and congratulate people for that. And to also not be so hard on yourself and to also celebrate your small wins. Isa yun sa mga na-realize ko at isa sa mga changes na I'm working on right now with the company that I am connected with at this point. So my boss would always tell me na don't focus too much on what went wrong kasi yung what went wrong natin, as soon as we have identified a way on how to correct that, that's it. Implementation na lang. Focus also on your small wins kasi if you don't celebrate your small wins and you focus only on the failure, mababurn out ka talaga. Mababurn out ka, you will lose focus, you will lose motivation, mas lalo kang mahihirapan. So if these are the failures that you had for this week, ano naman yung mga small wins mo? Ano yung mga nagawa mo ng tama? Ano yung mga na-launch mo ng tama? Ano yung mga changes na nagawa mo? Which also means that dapat ikaw din innovative kang mag-isip. Dapat lagi mo na check ano ba ang po pwede kong i-improve dito? How do I make this easier for my stakeholders and for myself? How do I improve this? What's the best way of doing this? And you can always, and it's very welcome lalo na pag global stage. Welcome palagi yung pag suggest, pagbibigay ng recommendations. Doesn't mean that all recommendations will be approved, pero wini-welcome nila yan. And when you make a recommendation, the more kumbaga, the more detailed you are with how you want to take things, the better. Kasi i-challenge nila yung opinion mo. If you say na, uy, magandang magbigay ng additional na leave credits for mental well-being, first question will be, why? Hindi pa ba enough yung meron tayo ngayon? Bakit mo gustong mag-add? Ano ang gusto mong mangyari? Ano yung balik sa company? Bakit kailangan natin gawin to? So may mga ganun silang questions. So yung usual na sinasabi namin sa Philippines HR group na you should know how to speak business, very important siya pag kayo ay working for a global company. At lalo na kung gusto ninyo na maging working directly dun sa mga companies na located in other countries, such as in my case. Kailangan talaga na pag meron kayong sinuggest, alam ninyo kung ano yung reason for that suggestion, ano yung problem na tinatry niyang isolve, ano yung timeline mo, how do you want to implement that, and ano yung magiging return on investment. Bakit kailangan nating gawin to? Yun palagi ang question. Sino ang stakeholders mo at paano nila ma-appreciate yung ginagawa mo? You also need to develop flexibility. Gusto nyong magtrabaho sa isang global company, then the first thing that you have to be familiar with is that umasa na kayo na ang inyong oras sa work, lalong-lalo na kung kayo po ay nagtatrabaho sa mga mga not OSPs, mga call centers, mga outsourcing companies, umasa na kayo na hindi kayo po pwedeng magsabi na 8 to 5 lang ako. Ayan. Kasi, ano yan, sa ibang bansa, it's not that i-require ka nila na mag-extend. It's just that flexible sila sa hours. Tayo, very particular tayo. 8 to 5 dapat, or 10 to 7 dapat, or kung ano pa man. When you are a global HR leader, you have, and I am speaking from a leader standpoint. When you are a global leader, dapat ikaw mismo kaya mo na maging flexible in how you handle your time. Pag sinabi sa'yo na, uy, may meeting ka ng 3 a.m. Philippine time, dapat kaya mo na kagad mag-adjust dun sa ganong schedule. Alam mo na kung ano ang gagawin mo. Pero, okay, you also have to know how to set your boundaries. Problema natin yan dito sa Philippine companies kasi 'di ba tayo yung kaya nga usual reklamo ng mga HR, madalas po akong OTY. Nagte-thank you na lang sa overtime. Kontrolin niyo na yan ngayon pa lang kasi in a global setting, ang expectation sa'yo is that you know how to manage your time. Hindi ka po pwedeng magsabi na, wala eh. Gusto ng boss ko na mag-overtime ako eh. Kaya aalis na lang ako dito kasi palagi akong pinag-e-extend. Let's say you're working with a company. I don't like it here anymore because I'm always working long hours, etc. etc. Sasabihin sa'yo ng boss mo, sino nagsabi sa'yo mag-work ng long hours? Yun palagi tatanong, who told you that you need to work long hours? I don't need you to work long hours. I just need you to finish this and this. Okay, kaya dapat alam mo kung paano i-manage yung time mo at alam mo kung paano mag-set ng boundaries. Kasi pag sinabi, pag let's say nag-extend ka ng hours mo, i-assume nila na ikaw ay marunong mag-manage ng 8 hours mo at alam mo kailan ka dapat mag-start. Hindi nila sasabihin sa'yo na, oh, mag-start ka ng ganitong oras kasi may meeting. Hindi. Sasabihin lang nila sa'yo, we have to meet at 3 a.m., you have to talk to this employee at 2 a.m. Sasabihin lang nila sa'yo. It's up to you how you're going to manage your time. So you have to be very flexible. In some cases, whenever I have meetings kasi usually ang schedule ko with the Canadian company is from 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. And whenever I have meetings that go beyond 2 a.m. to 30 a.m. for example or 3 a.m., automatic na yon, mag-a-adjust ako sa susunod kong shift. Okay? I'll keep to my 8 hours. I'll make the necessary adjustments. Any meetings that I have, it has to fall within that hour. And if it doesn't, you have to know how to speak up. Kulang kasi tayo doon. Sa atin, pag sinabi, oh, may meeting ka ng ganito, okay po. Okay lang tayo ng okay, and then tsaka tayo magrereklamo. Hindi po pwede yon sa global stage. You have to be upfront and you have to let them know, my schedule is from 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. If, since this one is 3 a.m., I might not be able to attend this one. What's the agenda? What do you need from me here? Dapat alam nyong itanong yun. Hindi dahil sinabing may meeting, okay na lang kayo. You are allowed to ask, what's the agenda? What's my contribution? Or why do you need me here? And I usually do that if, for example, I have meetings na hindi ko alam kung anong topic. I ask them, I got a calendar invite for this day, but I'm not sure what I can contribute to this meeting. So I'd like to know what the agenda is and why do you need me for this particular meeting. And they will tell you. Hindi sila madaling ma-hurt pag tinanong nyo sila ng bakit ako kasama dito. Ano yung reason ba't nyo ako sinama? No, they will answer you straightforward na, we need you here because of this and this and this. So pwede nyo sabihin na, unfortunately, this is beyond my usual schedule. Can we have it rescheduled this day, this time? And they would be okay with that. Tayo kasi sa Pilipinas, pag mga ganyan, natatakot tayo. Naku, magagalit si boss. Sabi ni boss, may meeting kami ng 7 p.m., 6 p.m. dapat uuwi na ako. Kaso 7 p.m. daw ang meeting, paano kaya ito? Hindi ako hindi ako pupwedeng humindi kasi boss ko yon. In the global setting, doesn't matter if you're the boss or you're not the boss. If it's beyond your work hours, you can let them know that you cannot attend. And if you're needed in the meeting, they would have to reschedule the meeting. And you have to be upfront about that. At hindi lang yun. Hindi lahat ng calendar invite na isisend sa inyo, kailangan nyong attendan. Sometimes, lalo na pag hindi naman kayo importante, or wala kayong mako-contribute dun sa meeting, you are allowed to say no. Hirap tayo sa no. Palagi tayong hirap sa no. So if you would want to become a global HR leader, develop your ability to say no. Sa yan sa mga na-practice ko na over time, having worked with a number of multinational companies. If it's beyond my work hours, I would tell them that, unfortunately, this is beyond my hours. I may not be able to attend this meeting. Or if, for example, nakita ko, hindi ko alam tong topic na to. what's the agenda for this meeting? Because I am not sure what my contribution would be. Pag sinabi nila ito yung agenda, pwede nyo sabihin, and I also do this a lot, I don't think I would be able to contribute much to this meeting, so I would have to decline this meeting. But do let me know if there's any changes. Kailangan nating ma-manage yun. Ngayon pa lang dapat alam ninyo how you can advocate for yourself. That's one of the things that I learned from my boss. Being able to advocate for yourself. Letting your stakeholders and even your boss know if something is not feasible for you. So, kasi minsan yan, yung mga boss nyo, hindi rin nila alam na hindi mo pala kaya. Wala kasi silang assumption. Ang assumption kasi nila palagi is, kaya niya. So, hindi nila ina-assume na baka hindi niya kaya to. Hindi nila titignan yun na baka hindi niya kaya. Ang isipin nila, ano ba yung ini-entail ng position na to? So, may expectation na kaya mo yun. Now, if hindi mo kaya, you have to let them know. You have to let them, or you have to say to them na this is not something that I think I can contribute on. I am not familiar with this topic, so I'm not sure if I would have to decline this one unless there is a change in what's going to be the discussion. Po pwede yan. Okay? Ngayon pa lang, simulan nyo na yan. Paano po yun? Yung boss ko po kasi ngayon na Pinoy, pag sinabing meeting, kailangan attend talaga kami ng meeting, nagagalit pag hindi kami attend. You have, hindi question, you have to challenge them as well na, boss, I am not sure I'm going to add any value to this meeting. Wala akong mako-contribute dito. I still have a lot of things that I need to work on. Possible na to attend this one so that I can focus on this kasi meron akong project that I need to finish. Okay? Kailangan ngayon pa lang. And if your boss is not okay with that, pinapagalitan kayo, ano ba yan? Or ginagamit yon against sa inyo, tingnan ninyo kung either time to go, time to look for other opportunities. Kasi, lalo na kung gusto nyo maging global HR, ito yung mga competencies na kailangan ma-practice nyo ngayon pa lang. Advocate for yourself and let your stakeholders know, let your immediate head know if something is not working for you, is not okay with you, and if you think may iba pa na mas magiging okay or mas makakapag-contribute doon. Isa yan actually sa mga tuwang-tuwa yung current boss ko, yung American boss ko. Kasi we had when I started, syempre when you're so used to Philippine companies, so you pick up bad habits and you forget to advocate for yourself. And whenever they call for meetings, I'm usually going to be present there because I'd also want to understand what's happening. So there was one meeting, and this was during the early parts or early months of my stay with the company. There was one meeting na iniisip ko, kailangan ba ako dito? Parang wala naman ako madadagdag dito. So, when I got the calendar invite, I actually said no. Nakita yun ng boss ko na nag-no ako doon sa calendar invite. And she immediately set up a huddle for us. Okay, so ako naman kinabahan na parang lagot ata ako dahil nag-no ako doon sa calendar invite. Sa totoo lang, nagulat ako sa kanya reaction. She was very happy. She actually congratulated me. And she said that it's the first time that she saw a no coming from me. So sobrang saya daw niya na nakita niya na nag-no ako. Kasi nagwo-worry siya na in every meeting nag-yes ako na baka daw nabe-burn out na ako or na-pressure ako with the load of work, with the workload that I have, or baka iniisip ko daw na bawal akong mag-no. So, nung nakita niya na nag-no ako doon sa isang meeting, natuwa siya kasi, she has a good understanding of when she's needed and when she may not be able to contribute anything. So, natuwa siya doon kasi merong parang usually daw kasi pag may nakakatrabaho siya or meron siya nakaka-work ng mga Filipinos tend to say yes to everything kahit hindi na kaya. And when she saw the no coming from me, alam niya na she knows what's important, and she knows yung mga bagay na hindi naman siya makakapag-contribute or wala naman siya magiging impact. And that's one of the things that you have to really develop. So, dapat alam nyo mag-no, dapat meron kayong certain level of flexibility sa inyong time in how you do things, and especially if you would want to work for a remote company. Okay? Kasi ito yung isa sa mga challenges ng remote work eh. How do you keep yourself focused and how do you make sure na talagang productive ka? isa sa mga usual na iniisip natin, very prevalent itong ganitong mindset sa Pilipinas, na yung 8 to 5 or yung 8 hours of work ninyo, you are expecting yourself and everybody else to be consistently productive from 8 to 5. The thing is, you can't be consistently productive from 8 to 5. Your energy, your motivation will ebb and flow. Babago yan. In the morning, you have high energy. Towards the afternoon, low energy. Towards the evening, high energy. So, after lunch, usually, low energy kayo niyan. Bakit? Kakakain nyo pa lang eh. Okay, yung energy nyo, wala pa talaga dun sa work ninyo. Nagre-recover pa yan. Kasi lahat ng energy nyo is kinuha ng digestive system ninyo para i-digest yung pagkain ninyo. And then after some time, so medyo antok-antok pa yan, towards the evening, kung kailan okay na kayo, yung energy na ginamit sa pagda-digest ng pagkain nyo, bumalik na sa mga pinanggalingan nila, tataas ulit yung inyong energy level. So it is not possible for someone to be consistently productive every single second of the day. The challenge here is knowing yung inyong energy levels and prioritizing your tasks based on that energy level. If mataas ang energy level nyo in the morning, then anything that's major, do that in the morning. If mababa ang energy level towards the afternoon, then anything that's programmable, anything that's repeatable, okay? Anything na paulit-ulit nyo lang ginagawa, gawin nyo during that time. Anything that you can do on autopilot mode, gawin nyo when your energy is low. Kasi yan, kahit wala kayong energy, muscle memory, natatandaan nyo na kung paano gawin yan, pwede nyo siyang gawin kahit wala kayong energy. And towards the evening, habang tumataas, go back doon sa mga kailangan ng review, kailangan ng mga analytical thinking, go back to that hanggang sa makauwi kayo. Be flexible in how you manage your work and know kung kailan mo ba siya dapat i-schedule. Kasi pag mali ang scheduling mo, for example, you're doing something major and in-schedule mo siya when your energy is low, you will either not be able to focus or you will lose your motivation or ikaw ay hindi ka makakapag, kumbaga hindi mo siya matatapos, mababurnout ka, maiirita ka kasi wala din yung energy mo. Wala din yung focus mo. Wala kang paghuhugutan ng energy mo. So you need to know how to do that. And flexibility is very important if you're working with a global company or you would want to become a global HR leader. And when I say flexibility, kasama din dito yung knowing when to step out of work and hinga lang para lang makabalik kagad yung energy ninyo. Kasi minsan tayo, pag sinabing 8 to 5 yung work, talagang 8 to 5 tayo. Hindi tayo yung tipong tumatayo. But this is one of the things that I learned from my boss na sometimes yung 8 to 5 mo doesn't have to be an 8 to 5. You can start early, start ka ng 7 a.m. Uwi ka pa rin ng 5 p.m. pero start 7 a.m. kasi in between you have, let's say, you can take a lot of breaks. Lalong-lalo na pag meron kayong mga mental health challenges, pag meron kayong mga mental health conditions, nakakabuti yun na every now and then you stop, you take some time off, and then you go back. Kaya nga yung Pomodoro technique pagdating sa time management, palagi yang sinasabi ng mga nag-train pagdating sa time management. Kasi Pomodoro technique allows you to step out of your work for a few minutes para lang makahinga, para bumalik yung energy, and then pwede ka ulit bumalik. Hindi kailangan na yung dire-diretsong trabaho talaga. Na usually nangyayari pag kayo nasa opisina or pag yung mga traditional na mga companies na para bang konting hindi lang work-related, lagot ka na kagad at mamememohan ka na. Sometimes, kailangan mo din na mag-take ng break, huminga ng konti, and then you can go back to work. Probably this is the reason why yung mga remote workers natin, sinasabi nila na mas productive sila. Kasi pag remote work ka, pwede kang mag-step out, check ka muna nung kung ano yung nasa Netflix, hinga ng konti, inom ng tubig, and then you can go back to your work. Pag sa office kasi, yes, pwede kang timpla muna ng kape, pero kumbaga, along the way, makikita mo pa rin yung mga office mates mo, nandun ka pa rin sa same setup, so hindi ka talaga makahingang maigi. And this is also the reason why bakit yung ibang mga empleyado mahilig sa coffee break, mahilig sa yosi break, kasi nga, kailangan mo talagang huminga. Hindi mo kakayanin na dire-diretsyong work yan all the time. Okay? Ayan. And we've reached the end ng atin pong presentation. Siguro I will end my presentation with a line from the founder, CEO, and founder of DEI Consultancy, Natasha Kehimkar. Maganda yung sinabi niya. Ang sabi niya, the what of HR is the same. Regardless if you're local or global company, the what of HR is the same. You enable the leaders to shine, you grow your talent, you ensure organizational effectiveness, you attract great people. These are all the same. Whether you are working for a local company here in the Philippines, working for a multinational company here in the Philippines, or you're working directly with a global company, you are working there, wala ka sa Pilipinas, nasa ibang bansa ka na, at ikaw ang kanilang, let's say, CHRO, or you want to become a CHRO for a global firm, you want to become a VP for a global firm, you want to become an HR director for a global firm, the what is the same. Okay? Pero gusto ko itong i-highlight kasi even if the what is the same, we forget key elements of the what. Tingnan ninyo yung sinabi niya. Ang sabi niya dito, you enable leaders to shine. Bilang mga HR sa Pilipinas, oftentimes takot tayo na i-challenge yung mga leaders natin. Okay? We feel that we are underneath them. Yung mga VPs, C-suite level, C-level natin, yung mga directors, ayan, coming from other departments, when they tell us something, there's this feeling na dapat tayong sumunod kasi HR officer lang naman ako. HR manager lang naman ako, director siya. Ano bang say ko? But in reality, it doesn't matter what your job title is. Doesn't matter what level you are. The role of HR is to enable leaders to shine. How do you enable them to shine? You guide them. You challenge their way of thinking. You provide them with the with basis na kung ano man yung mga opinion ninyo, and you try to see things from their perspective. You also develop your understanding of business. Yung business acumen, importante yan. Not just the business that you are in, but business in general. You need to understand what profit and loss is all about. You need to understand ano ba yung mga best practices when it comes to budget management. Dapat alam mo yan. Kasi if you want to guide leaders, VPs, HR, directors, C-level people, if you want to guide them on what needs to be done, you also need to understand where they are coming from. Ano yung mga basics? How do they what language do they speak? Paano nila pinipresent yung mga ideas nila? Dapat naiintindihan yan. Kasi kung yung profit and loss hindi mo naiintindihan, or you don't know what, let's say, supply chain management is all about. Yung mga ganong basic items. If you don't understand those things, it will be hard for you to manage your leaders, manage people higher than you so that they are able to shine. We also need to know how to grow talent. Tayo kasi, nandun tayo palagi sa we need to develop people. But not all people within your organization are talents. So ano yung ipaprioritize mo? Kasi hindi ka naman po pwedeng i-train mo lahat yan. Mag-training tayo sa lahat ng yan. Okay? Kasi kailangan, KPI kasi namin, dapat may isang training bawat empleyado. Pero ano yung end goal mo? Training is an input. Ang kailangan mo is output. How do you make sure that there is an output? And how do you make sure that the output is commensurate doon sa in-spend ng company, sa investment ng company? So you have to focus first on the talents. Sino yung talents mo? Dapat alam mo yan. Hindi lahat ng empleyado ay talents. Hindi lahat ay nandun sa 9th box, sa 9-box grid. Meron kang mga nasa box 3, box 4, box 2. Anong gagawin mo sa kanila? So dapat naiintindihan mo yung talent density. Dapat din alam mo kung paano i-ensure yung organizational effectiveness. If as an HR you don't understand the processes, the procedures in other departments, how would you make sure na merong organizational effectiveness or operational efficiency? If you don't know how to read data, quantify things, hindi ka marunong ng data analysis, hindi mo alam kung ano yung 4 stages of data analytics, ang kaya mo lang ay descriptive analysis, you don't know how to do diagnostic or predictive or prescriptive analytics, then you will have a problem ensuring organizational effectiveness. You also need to know how to attract great people. Hindi attract lang people. Kasi minsan, lalo na pag nasa talent acquisition, masyado nating binababa yung halaga ng talent acquisition na tipong mahilig tayo sa Pwede na yan, kailangan na kasing maklose eh. Ang tagal na kasing open yan eh. Hindi kami makahanap ng right people for that. Baba kasi ng budget ng company eh. Kaya hindi kami makahire ng right talent. But right talent does not mean na kailangan mataas din ang sweldo. There are also diamonds in the rough, and if you can figure out who those people are, where to find those people, madali ka ngayon makaka-attract ng great people. Kasi sometimes great people don't know that they are great. Sometimes other people don't know that what you have is a great person just because it's a diamond on the rough. So kailangan mo ngayon alam mo dapat kung paano sila hahasain, paano sila pagagalingin. That's our role as an HR. We find people who are good at what they do or who are actually diamonds in the rough, and then we develop them so that they shine brighter than dun sa iba pa natin mga employees or dun sa kung sino man yung mga nasa competition natin. Yun ang ginagawa natin. Hindi lang basta maka-hire, hindi lang basta maka-retain. Dapat yung energy natin is focus on the right people for the right position at the right time. Yan ang palagi kong sinasabi pag nag-training ako sa talent acquisition. At hindi natin dapat binababa ang level ng talent acquisition kasi yan ang first. Yan ang kumbaga gatekeeper natin sa organization. Pag mali ang na-hire, right from the start, problema yan. And in a global setting, napaka-importante yan. Kaya nga mapapansin nyo sa mga global setting, pag nag-apply kayo sa multinational companies, global companies, ang tindi ng kanilang recruitment process. At hindi ko sinasabi na sobrang dami nilang assessment. Minsan, interview pa lang, mapapansin na nila, dito po pwede. They espouse practices such as targeted recruitment, behavioral interviewing, use of video interviews, and very strategic sila in what they're trying to figure out. Tayo, mahilig pa tayo sa how do you see yourself 5 years from now? What's your plan? Why did you leave? Nakafocus tayo dun sa bakit ka may gap? Bakit ka nawala ng trabaho for 3 years, 2 years? Bakit ka nagja-job hop? Yun ang mas pinofocus na natin. But in global companies, ang focus nila is, ano yung competency na kailangan ko for this position? And how do I check the competency of my applicant? Paano ko malalaman kung meron siya nitong competency na to? So yung mga questions, they are focused on the particular competency that they are looking at. How would you handle this situation? What about in your previous companies? Have you handled this particular position? Yun ang kanilang mga line of questions. Hindi yung tipong, how do you see yourself 5 years from now? What's your plan? Yan. Mahilig tayo sa ganyan. Magandang opening yan, pero hindi yan magandang basis if we're going to accept someone or hindi. So, again tatandaan po natin, if we want to become global HR leaders, the what is the same, but you have to also be careful do sa what ninyo. Ano ba yung what ninyo? Kasi baka yung what pa lang, bagsak na tayo, masyadong generalized yung approach natin, masyadong hindi nakafocus, sayang ang energy, sayang ang effort, dun tayo sa pwede talaga tayo makakuha ng magandang return on investment. Kasi if you're able to do that, then your leaders will have more respect for you. Now, the how would be different. In the how, you need to make sure that you understand na pagdating sa global setting, some of the things that you are used to in the Philippines, you have to let it go and you have to know how to advocate for yourself so that you can also advocate for other people. Okay? Ayan po. Maraming salamat. If you have any questions, you can make use of our group chat po para sa inyong mga questions. But for now, thank you so much for spending time with me. And I would be giving back the floor, ayan po, sa atin pong mentor Tina. Ayan, mentor.
We will open, ang daming comment ha. So we will open the floor for comments, reading, and for questions. Kung may tanong po kayo kay Madam Rona, please feel free to leave it in the comment box. Okay, so Gem CC is saying, good afternoon, Mentor Rona. Thank you for sharing HR knowledge in the HR field. Sabi po ni Miss Marian Serrano Villava, very informative topic, Miss Rona. Angeline Gallardo, good afternoon, HR, the HR Cafe, for sharing new HR knowledge in the HR field. Daming HR, no? Sabi po dito si Miss Marian, I like the fact about grit and resiliency. We'll ponder on that later. Thank you, Miss Rona. I like the global setup. Me thinks Filipinos must learn how to be upfront. Sa totoo lang, may toxic na bosses na almost 12 hours ang meeting, totally unproductive and waste of time pag hindi niya alam yon. So sinasabi din is be an advocate for yourself. Thank you so much, Miss Rona. So I think the question then is a lot of people, what's your best tip in action? Kasi people think that if you work overseas, mataas ang sweldo. And we all know if you are an HR overseas, you will be paid, in general, paid more than an HR in the Philippines. What's your best tip in getting a job in HR abroad if you are an experienced HR here?
Um, well, number one, especially if nag-start kayo as HR here in the Philippines and you want to transfer or go global, ang pinakamagandang gawin is make sure that people know who you are. Kasi nga hindi tayo nag-advocate sa sarili natin eh. So we
Mm.
don't make use of LinkedIn, we don't, participate in it. Things like this, like HR cafe, we don't network. If we do network, we network dun sa mga same business lang. Hindi tayo nagne-network outside of our business. We don't get to know people who are already in the international stage. Yun yung kailangan ninyo if you would like to get your foot at the door pagdating sa mga global companies. Huwag din kayong mahihiya to seek the help of headhunters. Kasi headhunters will usually have companies, international companies that they are working with, and if they see value in you, they know who you are, merong name recall, they're most likely to recommend you dun sa kanilang mga clients. But kailangan tayo din mismo minamarket natin yung sarili natin. Dapat active tayo sa LinkedIn, dapat nag-share tayo ng thoughts natin. If you want to be active in TikTok or you want to have a YouTube channel, start working on that. Kasi the more headhunters and companies see you, the more likely they will reach out to you if they think na you are what they are looking for. Kasi yun din yung nangyari sa akin even with Game Loft before. They were able to reach out to me because they saw na I was active in LinkedIn, I was doing, let's say, mga blogs that time. So, nakita nila yon, they saw value in that, they saw my profile, they reached out to me. Same goes for the current company that I'm working with, which I got through a headhunter. The headhunter knows me, they know about me, they've seen itong mga HR cafe, the seminars and the webinars that we have with Uprush, with Philippines HR Group, and they realize na this is a match for what their global client is looking for. And that's the reason why I got there. When you start marketing yourself and when people start knowing who you are, it's easier for them to see a match for what they need and what you have to offer. And this is also true even with Coach Dar. I know that Coach Dar has been companies have reached out to him kasi kilala nila, alam nila, because Darwin himself also markets himself. Hindi siya yung tipo na mahihiya na mag-talk or mag-attend ng mga ganitong mga seminars. Hindi rin siya nahihiya na mag-network, get to know people outside ng nung kanyang industry that he is in. Hindi siya nahihiya. And yung hiya, hindi yung tipong approach na is yung fangirl approach na parang, ay, si
Yeah.
David Ulrich, hindi, talagang ini-introduce niya na I am Darwin, I am the President and CEO of Philippines HR Group. Yung ganun. We have to be confident in what we have and we have to be the one to take the initiative to get to know these people para long run, pag may opening yung mga yan, may kakilala, ayan, madali ka ngayon nilang ma-refer or ma-recommend.
Another alternative for me in my experience kasi is number one, it's better for you to join a global company. Kasi
Hmm,
many global companies also like to hire from another global company. So I did
agree.
Acer, then I worked to UBS. Number two, also make sure that you use the time of application to match up to the requirements of where you're applying for. Kasi may nakikita ako sa PHRG that when they apply on a larger company, mas mabagal po yung approval process. Kasi mga small to medium enterprises in the Philippines, parang pag nag-interview ka, within the week, 2 weeks, may approval na. So, hired ka na. Pasok ka na within the month. In many global companies, they need the approval of a regional director, of a global director to get that headcount approved. So it usually takes more than 1 month. In my case,
Yeah.
it took 6 months to the point na akala ko na hindi na siya matutuloy. So you need to
Hmm,
make sure that if you're applying for a global company, for an overseas spot, make sure that you allocate that. Hindi kayo magre-resign agad if somebody shows interest in you because that process might take a very long time. And then
agree.
it's a lot better when you are inside a global company to really reach out and kick ass. Kasi when it's easier to get transferred than to get hired. So for me, internal transfers are way more powerful than just being hired off the bat, because it ensures that you are already a good fit to the culture of the company. Kasi even
Correct.
if maraming multinational companies, iba-ibang fit, iba ang American company sa British company sa Spanish company, they all have very different cultures. So I came from a
Agree.
European company, I started working for a British company. Doon pa lang, Europe to Europe, iba talaga yung mindset ng Swiss versus like something
Agree.
else, right? So you need to take that into account, that even if you survive and work well in one company, it doesn't mean you will be successful in another, because it's not really a universal fit. So
Yes, kaya
you
kailangan
have
naintindihan talaga yung
mm-mm.
culture.
So you have to be very careful when you apply, kasi there is also that wish, but sabi nga ni Ma'am Rona, tama ka, you also have to market yourselves, which we're not very good at doing. Kasi people need to know who you are. And which relates to the second question, Mentor Rona. What if you're not like Darwin? What if you don't like to market yourself? What if you're more of an introvert? You're very good in technical terms. You know magaling ka. You know you can do it. It's just that hindi ka ganun na taong, sorry, medyo makapal na mukha na pwedeng mag-LinkedIn, mag-reach out. What can you do if you don't have that personality, even though you are a good HR?
Okay. Well, good HR can be a bit subjective kasi
Yeah.
you can be a good HR in the Philippines, but because you don't have global knowledge, you might not be a good
Yes.
HR for a global company. So, taking off do sa sinabi mo kanina, number one, you can do the route that you mentioned na you start working for a multinational company right off the bat. Be
Mm.
careful with where you apply. Minsan kasi
Mm.
because we are so in need of a job, kahit ano na lang. But you have to be careful with how it would appear in your resume. So
Mm.
titingnan ninyo kung sa kayo nag-a-apply, and then pag kayo ay nag-start na ng work doon. And let's say you're not Darwin, you don't know how to market yourself. You're an
Yeah.
introvert, you don't like talking to people, write. You may not
Mm.
like talking to people, but write. Write something. Put something
Ah.
out. Kasi people still need to see you. If they don't see
Mm.
you and if you're in just one corner and ang nakakakilala lang sa'yo are the people that you are working with, medyo
Mm.
mahihirapan ka. Not to say na mahihirapan ka or hindi ka makakapag-apply someplace else, but limited yung network mo. And it's limited to the people you've worked with. And if they had a good experience with you, they may refer you. But it all depends on kung saan sila lilipat. So if they're
Mm.
also working for a multinational company, they might refer you. But if they decide to, transfer to a local company because they don't like working for a multinational company na, then liliit lalo yung chances mo to be recommended to a multinational company. So if you don't like, putting yourself out there via videos, via training, via seminars, at least write something. Kasi yun, yung mga blogs, you don't really have to put your video there, or you don't have to talk publicly. Mababasa pa rin nila yung thoughts mo, and pag nakita nila na there's value, people will follow you, and people will, try to check out who you are, and if they have an opening, they might reach out to you. At the same time, kung ikaw ay introvert, hindi kasi okay. Generally speaking, hindi okay yung palaging reasoning na eto na ako eh. Hindi ko 'to
Mm.
mababago.
Mm.
Everyone has the capacity to change. I am an introvert doesn't show that I am an introvert. Ako ata ang pinakamadaldal na introvert. But I am an
Mm.
introvert. Kahit na introvert kayo, develop nyo pa rin yung ability to reach out and to connect to people. Doesn't have to be maraming connection agad. But, slowly get to know people. Have someone at the start, you can have someone who can advocate for you. In my case, I think I would say that Darwin is actually someone who advocated for me and connected me with a lot of people. And then over time, I learned how to also market myself. Mahirap, kailangan ko mag-exert ng effort, but I know that if I don't do that and people don't see who I am, paano ko ima-market even si Uprush? Or how do I now get myself out there para makita ko ng mga global leaders? Because if I want to be a global HR leader, if I don't do that, walang mangyayari. I started with blogging. I don't like being in videos. I don't like being in seminars. I don't like being in webinars nung simula. But over time, I was able to find a way ng kung paano ko i-handle yun nang hindi ako masyadong nabu-burn out or hindi ako, alam mo yun, masyadong I don't feel uncomfortable. So you have to challenge kung ano yung meron kayo ngayon. Kasi pag hindi nyo ginawa yun and sinabi nyo lang na eto na ako wala talagang mangyayari. Very limited yung network ninyo and it will take time before somebody would get to notice you.
Mm. With regards, I've noticed then what you've mentioned that many very good HR directors, managers that I've met through the PHRG group are very good in writing.
Mhm.
Pansin ko yon, they're very good in writing talaga. Like literally akala
Mhm.
ko magaling na ako magsulat, but then you meet somebody else na, oh, galing din siya magsulat. Parang ang bilis nilang mag-write, ang bilis nilang mag-come up with concept. Why do you think that's the case? And I've seen them to become even more successful. But it is say not all good writers become good HR, but most good HR managers, like as in like management, are very good writers.
Mhm.
Why is it the case, and how do you develop it if you're just a newly graduate HR man? It's a changing mindset, 'di ba? Na how do you develop that skill? Kasi a lot of people don't like to write. A lot of people don't like to do math. How do you improve that skill so that you can scale up in our field?
Actually, most HR who are good writers are also good readers. They like to read a lot. And because they
Mm,
read a lot, they have thoughts about a lot of things. And when
that's
you have
true.
thoughts and you don't have anyone to share it with, the first thing that you would do is to write it down. You know, write
Mm,
down yung mga thoughts mo, write down yung mga plans mo, and
mm,
somewhere along the way, when you want to make it clearer, you start, really writing the whole stuff. You get used to writing policies, procedures, writing
ah,
emails na madaling maiintindihan ng audience mo. It is something na yung mga fresh graduates natin, if they would want to develop that, ang unang-unang kailangan baguhin is the idea na pag sinabi sa inyo na may mali dun sa grammar, yung unang sagot natin na, o edi ikaw na matalino.
ah!
We have to stop that mindset. If someone calls you out na mali, tingnan ninyo kung ano yung mali and how you can improve on that. Write
Mm,
write as much as possible. Kahit pa wrong grammar kayo, basta may nag-call out sa inyo, correct nyo na lang, pero write as much as possible. Kung mahilig kayo mag-TikTok, dahil yung generation ngayon ay gusto maging influencers,
mm,
instead of doing TikTok, start with blogs first. So, create your
mm,
own blog, libre lang ang WordPress, libre lang ang blogger.com. Start writing your
mm,
own blogs kasi that would push you to also become a good reader and
mm,
nahahasa then how you express your thoughts. And
mm,
then, share nyo. Have people read yung mga ginagawa ninyo. Pag kayo ay nagwo-work na, start looking at how you create memos. Kasi yan yung unang
mm.
papagawa sa inyo.
Oo.
NEDs, NODs. Pabasa ninyo sa boss ninyo. Be very open with your boss. Ask your boss, what do you think? Ano yung kailangan ko i-improve? And even yung mga colleagues ninyo, pa-check ninyo sa kanila. And kung ano yung sasabihin nila sa inyo, tandaan nyo yun. Kasi hindi naman po pwede na sinabi na sa'yo kung ano yung mali. Hindi mo tinatandaan kasi ginawa mo ng editor yung boss mo at yung mga colleagues mo. Tatandaan nyo kung saan kayo nagkakamali.
Mm,
Balikan nyo yun, keep those in mind, and then write. Write lang kayo ng write. If you need a policy, a procedure, gawin nyo na kagad yung policy, sulatin nyo yung procedure, and then pabasa nyo yung sa boss ninyo. Kasi not only does it allow you to improve your communication skills, it also shows initiative on your end. So sulat ninyo, gawin ninyo, read a lot kasi you cannot write anything kung wala kayong alam about that topic. So kahit ano pang topic yan, let's say you're an HR, pero dahil bago pa lang kayo, hindi nyo pa kabisado kung ano yung mga sinusulat sa HR, and you like to write about something else, then write about
mm,
something else. End of the day, kailangan, practice makes perfect eh. You have to continuously write something so that you can spot ano ba yung mga areas na nagkakamali ako. Kung hindi kayo ganun ka-confident, may Quillbot, ang dami mga platforms that can help you check yung mga grammar ninyo. Use that para makita nyo kung saan kayo nagkakamali. Huwag kayo mag-chat GPT muna. Okay si chat GPT, pwede nyo
Medyo
gamitin yun, walang
obvious though, 'di
problema.
ba?
Obvious pag chat
Medyo
GPT,
obvious ang ChatGPT,
yeah,
ah. You have to be
masyado
careful, like
siyang formal.
Hindi, meron siyang style eh. There's a style at ChatGPT. It's
Hmm,
a little bit conversationalist na walang masyadong sinasabi.
oo,
So it's
parang
not a
paikot-ikot
fluff.
lang.
So be careful before using ChatGPT without editing.
Oo. Huwag kayong gagamit ng ChatGPT 'pag nag-i-start pa lang kayo to, you hone your communication skills. Right from scratch. Right from scratch, kung
Mm,
ano yung natutunan ninyo, ano yung na-realize ninyo. Keep a diary kung kinakailangan, write
mm,
journals, do all of this
mm,
kasi eto yung mag-i-improve sa writing skills ninyo.
mm,
Do it consistently until
mm,
such time na yung mga ginagawa niyong policies, procedures ay hindi na nire-review ng boss ninyo at approve na siya kagad. It
tama.
will take time. Hindi ito something that would happen overnight, over a few days, a few weeks, a few months. It will take years bago maging maganda yung writing skills ninyo. But you have to consistently do it.
All right. We have a statement here. I agree with Miss Rona. Good writers must be good readers. And we also have from Miss Lay Gonzalez. Sabi niya, I like how Miss Rona Florentino talks. She discusses point to point, illustrative, realistic, clear, and most of all, she talks with a substance that you will really learn from. Keep it up, coach. See you at the upcoming HR Summit. Sabi naman po ni Miss Kath Kiamko Manalo, wow, my takeaway is be an advocate of yourself. I'm sure na maraming HR professionals ang nakaka-relate dito. My new mantra. Thank you very much, Miss Rona. God bless. And you make us proud. So with regards to, di ba, so syempre parang we want to be global and you've mentioned kanina about us being offended. What's in our culture ba na madali tayong ma-hurt pag may sinabi sa atin yung counterpart natin? I think it's a very Filipino thing. We don't really worry about other people's feelings when you work global eh. 'Di ba like
Mm-mm.
dito lang talaga sa Philippines na maiiyak, nagsisimangot, yung magpapaawa, like you don't see that overseas. I mean, I'm just stating for me gulat na gulat ako na parang why do they take it so personally na trabaho lang? Walang personalan. But here in the Philippines, you have to be very sensitive of the feelings for others. Tapos pag nagtatampo,
Mm-mm.
i-share yung tampo sa mga kasama. Hindi nila iniisip na unprofessional yun. Whereas in
Mm-mm.
other countries, showing like complaining about your feelings is a sign of weakness na you can't do it. But dito, we do it all the time. What's in our culture? Can you explain, Mentor
Oo.
Rona?
Actually, ano tayo eh, very emotional na lahi tayo. Very emotional ang mga Filipino. It's very rare for you to come across a Filipino na, alam mo yun, may grit, may resiliency at talagang hindi kagad-kagad naapektuhan. Majority of the Filipinos, they do not like confrontation, and when faced with confrontation, madali tayong ma-hurt when we are being called out. Theory ko lang naman. It seems that
Mm.
kasi Philippines as a nation is actually very bata pa. Bata pa
Mm.
tayo, our history started way before, but yung identity natin as a Filipino started nasakop na tayo ng mga Kastila. And that's
Mm.
300 years na we are so used to being subservient na kailangan natin na kumbaga nasanay tayo na saying yes to people in power. And then
Mm.
after that, we have the Americans, which pretty much same story. And then we have the Japanese, same story. We are subservient to them. They are our masters. So nandun tayo palagi in such a ang nangyari sa atin ngayon dahil after the Japanese dun lang talaga tayo naging independent nation, hindi natin alam how to handle all of this na tayo na mismo yung nagmamanage ng sarili nating affairs. We still keep looking for people who will tell us what we need to do and how things
Yeah.
should be done. So sobrang baby natin na tipong pag may nag-call out sa atin, sinabi sa atin na you're doing it wrong, this is how you should do it, or that's not right, mali ka, we feel offended na kasi hindi pa natin na-develop yung maturity na tignan yung ibang mga lahi at tignan yung ibang mga tao, even kapwa Filipino natin who may be richer than us, have louder voices than us. Hindi natin sila makita na kapantay natin. We always see them as, oh, these are our masters. These are people better than us, higher than us. Therefore, I have to be subservient to them. And if
Mm.
they call me out, yung emotions ko, masasaktan ako kasi they don't understand that I am a baby. I can't do this on my own. Ganun yung nagiging mindset natin. At lagi natin, ano kasi tayo eh, lagi nating, masyado nating na-romanticize yung tipo na ang pagiging victim is something that we
Mm,
need to be proud of. Masyado nating na-romanticize yun. Masyado nating na-romanticize na pag mahirap ka, at some point bigla kang yayaman dahil anak ka pala ng isang mayaman na tao,
mm,
hindi mo lang alam. Or na pag pinahirapan ka, at some time makakaganti ka sa kanila at ikaw pala ay magiging mas mayaman sa kanila. Nandun talaga tayo palagi sa pag victim ka, there is light at the end of the tunnel.
mm,
You don't have to do anything. Fate will work it out for you. So pag ngayon nako-call out tayo, we feel we are the victim. We don't speak up, but we will complain na kawawa naman ako, and we will tell the person next to us kawawa naman ako, in the hopes that yung nasa paligid natin will become our knight in shining armor,
right.
defend us, work in advocating for us. Ganun yung nangyayari
Yeah.
sa atin. So
Yeah,
yun, but
I think you make
that's
a
my
good point.
theory.
You really cite a very, very good point that Filipinos are on a lookout for, many Filipinos are on a lookout for that knight in shining armor. Pero sa akin kasi, the way I look at it is, you have to be very conscious with how you act and what you say.
Yeah.
Kasi once you say it and once you do it, it's very hard for you to bring it back, and
Mm-mm.
what you have said and done sticks to the mind of your counterpart. Tayo kasi very reactive eh. If we don't
Mm.
feel happy, we sulk. If we're being called up, we turn out to be very defensive. If ayaw na natin magtrabaho for one company, we give a resignation letter and then we won't show up to work. It's very unprofessional. And what we forget is that the world is very small, right? And if we are very reactive and do things, then later on, pag maghahanap ka ng trabaho, malalaman, 'di ba nag-awol ka dati? Then how do you justify that, right? Or 'di ba ikaw yung nagtatampo, ikaw yung toxic na person, ikaw yung laging umiiyak sa work, ikaw yung may mental health. Like the things that we mentioned today will be there to stick us later on afterwards. We're okay in getting away from responsibilities today using XYZ reason. Pero pag natandaan yan in the future, at sabihin na, 'di ba ikaw yung dating hindi nagtapos ng trabaho because you cited ganito, ganyan. How can you deny those things that you've used before to run away from responsibility? Kasi like, if you, global HR, you can't do that. Like, you can't
Agree.
do that. Like, once you do that, medyo sira ka na. Pero dito, we use that often. Pag magle-leave, pag magre-resign, like, if we want to, hindi tayo na makahead ng, ang dami natin binibigay na excuse. Whereas, in global, minsan nga, wag ka na mag-explain eh. Para at
Mm.
least walang magamit sa'yo. Whereas dito, todo explain, over explanation on anong nangyari, bakit hindi natin nagawa yung trabaho. We're not ashamed to share personal information just so maawa yung tao, 'di ba? And you have to be very careful because you might be that girl who cannot take care of her family. And hence, it might harm your potential to promotion. 'Di ba? Like, if it's in a global company, why should I promote you and have you had a regional role if you can't even
Correct.
like take care of your department? Whereas dito, department heads would do that. Without, tapos later bakit di ako ma-promote? Like, because you take too many leaves. You can't contact you during the weekend. You're not very professional. You bring your kids to work. Like, you're not even leadership worthy. Why should we even promote you? Di ba parang, are you doubling down with the, kasi baby pa tayo? Ay, sayang, sa akin lang, nasasaktan din ako kasi, I don't I'm an advocate for women, and I'm an advocate for Filipinos rising up the ranks, and I'm very surprised how many of our kababayans shoot themselves on the foot.
Oo, actually.
Like, why are you saying this? You're basically like destroying your career or your chances for promotion. People will not respect you if you vocalized it, and yet you do. I don't
Mm.
understand why they do that. Mentor Rona.
Actually ako din minsan na
Gugulat.
mapapatanong ka din, napapatanong ka at nagugulat ka na bakit nga ba yung ibang mga Pilipino, ang first instinct nila palagi is to appeal to emotions.
Uh-uh.
And that's not something that you can do in a global setting. You cannot just about appeal to emotions, especially when you are trying to, let's say, launch a project, defend your
Mm.
project, ask for budget. You can't appeal to emotions. You have to appeal to their yung business sense nila. You have to show them data, you have to show them numbers, you have to be very objective in how you present things and in how you defend things. Sa atin, andun kagad tayo sa appeal to emotions. And yun nga, even yung mga boss ko before, isa sa mga nagiging comments nila palagi is that when they are working with Filipinos, they have to walk on eggshells kasi parang magkamali lang sila ng sasabihin,
Mm.
nagtatampo na agad. At pag nagtampo, hindi ito yung tampo na tipong kakausapin sila. Yung tampo i-share sa ibang office mates hanggang sa yung boss is now the monster, the bully, and then nagyayakag na, ay naku, umalis na lang tayo dito kasi ganito sila, ganyan. Hanggang sa
Mm.
lumalaki na yung problema that could have been sorted out in the first place if you have just spoken up and told your boss na, look, I don't think this is okay, this is not the right way to do things. Kung sinabi lang na gano'n, na-address na kagad. And yun, feeling ko talaga kasi wala pa tayo dun sa required, sa needed na emotional maturity in general, para hindi mag-appeal sa emotions. Masyado pa rin talaga
Mm.
nating na romanticize talaga yung pagiging victim na yun, palagi nating hinahanap na merong somebody else who
Mm.
would speak up for us. Kaya natin sinasabi doon sa mga nasa paligid natin, we want someone who would speak up for us instead of us being upfront na, hey, this is not working for me, this is not okay with me. Ganon
Uh-uh.
tayo.
You've mentioned technology, and as we've seen on the previous Tech HR conferences that was held in Singapore, so many technology
Yeah.
are coming in. So, how do you keep abreast with which one to use? It's not like Google for search engines or Facebook for social media. We don't know yet what are the technology that will come. How can you advise HRs now don't know where to start with regards to technology?
Okay. First thing that you have to ask yourself is, ano ba muna yung kailangan nyo i-automate? Kasi minsan baka naman masyado tayo na-excite sa technology. Kinuha na natin yung kung ano yung technology na meron dyan. Made use of it only to find out na hindi yun yung kailangan natin. So figure out first, ano yung kailangan nyo i-automate? Where is your bottleneck happening? Because that's where you can apply any automation, any technologies that you can have. If you don't have the budget, in-house and built na mga platforms technologies would be your best option. But if you do have the budget, you can start looking at yung mga HR people who are also tech proponents, because these are HR people who might already have tested some of these platforms. They know what's working, what's not working. But always keeping in mind ano ba yung problema na gusto mong i-address. Just because a platform is heavily recommended by someone doesn't mean that you go with that kasi baka it's not answering your need. If you can, try to find a platform that answers most of your needs para mas tipid sa budget. There are websites that are dedicated to listing down feedback from users. One website is Captera. You also have G2. I
Mm.
think these are platforms na every year nagre-release sila ng, let's say, top 2023 HR platforms that you can use. And then you can see kung ano ba yung mga features, functionalities, even kung magkano siya, at ano yung mga actual feedback coming from users. Always keep your ear on the ground sa kung ano ba yung mga latest technology. Si AI has been a buzzword even before the pandemic, but it only became something na talagang popular nung
Mm.
mag-start si ChatGPT. But the concept of
Mm.
AI has been there even before pa. Si ChatGPT, si COVID, before pa, meron ng AI. Dapat
Mm.
alam nyo kung anong ginagawa ni AI. Keep yourself, dito papasok again yung importance of reading. Dapat binabasa ninyo ano ba yung mga latest na platforms in HR na po pwede ninyong magamit, ano yung latest trends, ano yung latest technologies. Always keep your eye out on that. Usually naman kasi yung mga writers, pag start ng taon or towards the end of the year, naglalabas na sila ng mga predictions nila for the following year, or ano ba yung mga tools and technologies na most likely will launch the following year. If you can, join yung mga naghahanap ng mga beta testers. Some of these platforms, one good example is Smart Recruiters. Isa sila sa mga sort of an HR management system, they started as a beta testing na platform lang talaga. Beta tested na platform. So they were looking for HR professionals na po pwedeng mag-beta test ng kanilang platform, and you can use that for free. And lahat yung beta testers na yon, nung nag-launch na sila nung kanilang paid version, the beta testers actually got a free access doon sa kanilang platform at I think for
Mm.
1 year ata yon. So always keep your eye out dun sa mga ganong offers para nakikita nyo din kung ano ba yung mga pupwede ninyong gamitin, kung ano yung mga technology na pupwede i-consider. But at the end of the day, check nyo muna ano ba talaga yung problemang gusto nyong isolve, and then hanapin nyo ngayon ano yung platform that can help you solve that problem. Huwag nyo unahin yung platform bago nyo i-determine ano ba, saan ba namin pwedeng gamitin ito. Kasi pag ganun, gastos yung hinahanap nyo. So look at your problem first, ano yung gusto niyo i-automate, then look for a platform that will help you with that one. Si Google, marami kayong makukuhang options dyan, but look at an option that is focused on HR professionals or HR users. Yun yung mga pwede ninyong i-test, i-figure out, i-gamitin. Always take advantage of yung mga free na mga trial period nila para alam nyo din kung meron kayong multiple options, alin dun sa multiple options ang pwede nyong gamitin. Yun po.
Mm-hmm. So we're almost at the end of our show. Any last words from you, Miss Rona, and anything to promote? And I will also close the show.
Okay, last words po, kung kayo po ay HR who would like to become a global HR leader someday, start working on your competencies right now. Start changing your mindset from an administrative mindset to a strategic mindset. Start working on how you build your confidence and how you build your assertiveness, kasi these are important competencies when you start working for a global company. If you're tech averse, ayaw nyo sa technology, you'll have to change that kind of thinking, because with global companies, yung pagiging adaptive sa iba't ibang technology, it's very important for them. Yung ability nyo to embrace technology, very important for them. I got to know a lot of different platforms and technology when I started working for multinational companies. So dapat mabilis kayong mag-adapt, mabilis kayong makaintindi. Read a lot, write a lot, para yung inyong communication skills, yan ay mai-improve nyo din. Yun po. And kung ipopromote naman, we would like to invite everyone sa HR Bootcamp. We have HR Bootcamp Batch 24 happening this September, end of September. If you haven't reserved your slot, now's the best time to do it. We also have an upcoming webinar on basic MS Excel. Kung problema nyo po ang MS Excel or ang Google Sheets, eto po ang pinakamagandang webinar para ma-build nyo po yung basic competencies. Tuturuan namin kayo na kung paano mag-extract ng first name from the whole name pag kayo po ay may gamit na Excel file, or kung paano kayo mag-concatenate ng iba't ibang information at ilalagay sa isang cell sa Google Sheet, tapos iba-ibang lines sila within the same cell. Lahat po yan matututunan nyo po pag kayo po ay nag-enroll dun po sa ating Basic of MS Excel. Yun lang naman po, Mentor Tina.
Thank you for everyone who stayed with us until the end of the show. Sa akin, as we can see from Mentor Rona's presentation, there is a very big difference between a local HR and a global HR. And for me lang ha, personal opinion ko lang to, if you are an HR in a local company, it is good to aspire to apply for a global HR role or in a larger company, because totoo lang, the larger the company, the more benefits you do actually get, right? So salary wise, total rewards wise, benefit wise, when I was working in a global company, my leaves were at least 20 days, which was not a lot, but my colleagues had 30 days. You know what I mean? Our bonuses were not just 13, 14, 15, but 1 year on a good year. So there is really a very big difference compensation wise. If you are good enough for it, please consider upskilling yourself and trying your luck in a larger multinational company, or working in a more global HR role, because same pawis, same oras, pero mas mataas talaga ang sweldo, like sobrang taas. Like I think
Yeah.
10 years ago in IBM, like the HR of IBM Taiwan earned 1 million Taiwanese dollars. So I think that's 1.5 million or 2 million a month. Right?
Wow.
So it's just, alam mo yun, like apples and oranges. I work for a local company, I manage a local company, happy in a local company, but for mga kababayans who are good enough, like please consider working for a global HR company kasi compensations of few hundred thousands to millions per month, per month. But for you to be able to get that role, you really need to be global. You can't be local, right? You have to, as what Ron, you number one, watch rewatch the show because Mentor Rona gave you a lot of tips. You have to have that confidence to be more upfront. You need to present yourselves better. If you're very proud of being provinciano, be proud, but it might not get you the global role that you seek. Two, you need to make sure that your work is pulido. Don't apply for a multinational company if you're just waiting for instructions. If your boss tells you to do something, they don't follow up, right? They give you a meeting in the beginning, then 2 weeks later, then 2 weeks later, then 2 weeks later, there's a follow up meeting. But within those 2 weeks, you're expected to produce and to actually do something already. It's not like here in the Philippines na, tapos ka na ba? Tapos ka na ba? Ano pa ginagawa mo? Please show it to me. Submit it to me to edit. It doesn't matter what your age is, what your gender is, what your religion is. We don't care. Basta you just produce given the deadline that they're giving you. And there is no room for excuses. If you think na, dito sa Pilipinas, family time, may namatay. Globe, if you're working for a multinational, don't bring your personal affairs at work. It's very unprofessional. And once you start doing that, you'll never get promoted. You'll just be an encoder slash rank and file in the back end operations of an HR industry. So don't do that. Please don't do that. So you have to really, if you're going to do that, might as well promote yourself to mid management or upper management because that's where the money is. You need to be able to fit that role. And if you can't, then that's fine, diba? I mean, I'm not saying naman na, you're not more successful because you have that role. I'm just saying, if you are good enough, aim for that role. Kasi sayang eh. You go to these HR conferences overseas and you see these people younger than you who may not know as much as you and who may not work as hard as you but is earning 10 times more than you just because they have the necessary personality and identity to fit that role. Because they were able to gain the trust of the hiring manager and the department head to get that role. But totoo lang, they're not as good as you, but they have more opportunities than you because they know how to grab it. And I think the last point of Miss Rona is you need to really build up that confidence. May nagtanong sa akin kanina, like, bago daw siya sa HR role, may experience siya, but he wants to uplift himself. And I'm like, why don't you join conferences? Right? We have the Philippine PHRG HR conference that's happening in October 13. We have the World HR conference that's happening on October 5 and 6. Right? For less than 4,000 early bird, you get the ticket to both. And the question is, why should I even join these conference? 'Di ba? Like, sayang ng pera, I have to ask for early, babayad pa ako, 'di ba? Well, how is it worth my time? And the answer to it is, you know what? Because when you join these conferences, you get to meet HRs in the same field who are way better than you. Who are way better than you. Because in your company, you might think you're top dog. The boss listens to you, people respect you. And then you go to these conferences and then you meet other HR directors who are way better than you and will inspire
Agree.
you to become better, right? Like, blows your mind away. And then when you talk to them about your systems, uy, napaka-baby pa ng system natin. Akala ko, oh, ang galing-galing kasi ako gumawa. Eh sa kanila, they've been doing it for like decades. And they've perfected their system. Like, good companies, good bosses, and better HRs do exist beyond our realm, right? And you need to visit these conferences to see, meet, connect, and network with these other people who will teach you that you know nothing. And I think that's the best takeaway of all, na wala kang alam. Right? Kasi if you believe that wala kang, if you still need to know, you will be motivated to learn more. And I think that is the characteristic of a more global HR field where you're continuously growing, knowing
Yes.
in your field. right? So we're not saying it to sell tickets. We don't need you to buy. We will sell it all off. I think Darwin now is figuring out how to get a bigger venue. We don't need you to buy the tickets, but if you do buy the tickets and you listen to the speakers and you talk to the person sitting beside you will learn that, hey, I can do better and I should do
Mm.
better,
Yeah,
right? And that's one way for you to upskill to a more global role and to reach out more beyond where you are,
agree.
right?
Agree.
And so with that, I'm here to promote the PHRG HR conference October 13. We don't need you to buy the tickets, right? We can sell the tickets with or without you. But if you went, it's open your eyes because there is a bigger world out there and there are better people out there, and may you find inspiration from people who are better than you. All right. And with that, we will conclude today's webinar of the HR Cafe Trabaho Buhay at Iba Pa, which features mentor Rona Del Florentino, who talked about local HR versus global HR. What's the difference? Please like, subscribe, and share this webinar because it's available for replay for anyone who you think will be inspired by this talk. So thank you so much and see you next week at the HR Cafe.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye bye.